Hello, craft beer friends, and welcome to Season 11, Episode 7 of Tap to Craft Podcast. I am Denny Luce, coming to you from Boise, Idaho, and my partner in craft, the dog whisperer, and my favorite Florida man from Tampa, Florida, Mr. Kris McKenzie. Let us know how you're doing after Milton came through town, and of course, after that, please introduce our guest.
Yeah. So, Denny, I think since the last time you and I chatted, we've had two hurricanes come through town. We had
That's right.
freaking Milton, which, by the way, need a better name than that. I couldn't think of anything else other than Office Space the whole time.
Yeah.
Just give that guy his red stapler back. We'll be just fine. Between that one, which this one actually scared me a little bit, I'll admit it. But and then Helene the week before was just it was just rain with a name. So everything is good here, at least on the surface. People around us are dealing with most of us having power back. Everybody, some people, I mean, even a quarter mile away from us, their house is underwater. Cars are underwater.
Mm.
I took a video to send to my dad and my brother the other day. An aluminum shed flipped over somebody's 6-foot fence. Like
wow.
trampolines in the side of the road. Like it was crazy. So,
Mm.
but hey, it's not going to snow here. We usually don't have to deal with wildfires. And other than that, man, I'm just
True.
great. I'm just great. But with us tonight, we've got Kris Baker with Mother Earth Brewing Company. Kris, you're the director of brewing operations. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for coming on the show with us. We're excited to have you guys here. We chat about Mother Earth a lot, okay? And we're excited to chat with you guys and talk about your beers and learn a little bit about you guys. So
Awesome. Well, we're happy to be
Yeah.
here, man. Thank you for including us.
Yeah.
I appreciate all the conversations that happen. Hopefully I can fill in some of the gaps.
awesome.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, we're going to get the show started by doing a tasting right off. But before we do that, we always like to let anyone new listening to Tap to Craft podcast know what we're all about. We are an educational podcast focused around celebrating all things craft beer because we want to assist you, our listener, along in your craft beer journey and adventures. And you're listening to episode 267, recording on Monday, October 14th, 2024. And we are live on Facebook. If you'd like to join us during our recording session sometime, you can do that on the Monday prior to release at 8:30 Eastern Time. And in this episode, as Kris already mentioned, we're going to learn about Mother Earth Brew Company. And we're going to focus on the Nampa, Idaho, because that's where Kris is located. But we'll talk about the Vista, California location as well with the Director of Brewing Operations, Kris Baker. And we're going to have some great beer conversation as well. And let's get into that first beer tasting. Kris, I want to thank you again for your generous offering of beers. You way more than we can talk about on the show in one session, so we'll talk about them on multiple sessions. But we did pick 3 beers that we want to try on the show and talk about with you, because these are unique beers that I think people will really enjoy hearing about how they came about and some of the programs you guys do. So the first beer we'll talk about is the Cali Screamin Pumpkin Vanilla Cream Ale. And there's a can Kris is
There we
showing.
go.
Great can work.
Yeah.
Artwork.
Yeah.
Well, not this one specifically, but just the Cali Cream and Cream Ale. Anytime I'm on the West Coast, Kris, this is a beer that I go after anytime I can. And it's such an easy drinker. And now I'm excited this will be my first pumpkin beer of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I usually make the
Yes.
sacrificial pumpkin
Yep.
tasting, but this will be my first.
Nice. Well, I'm glad we could be here first. That's actually something. This is the first time we've ever actually done a pumpkin beer in the history of Mother Earth.
Well, you know what? We talked quite a bit when we met, and as I told you, I've never been a huge pumpkin beer fan. There's some that I appreciate and some, a little bit more than others. My wife loves them all. She likes the ones that are huge in spice flavor. Me, not so much. The spice is overwhelming. I like to have the beer flavor as well as maybe some spice in there. And I tend to lean towards the darker ales with that spice because it kind of blends together. But I will admit, before I saw this was on the board, and I try all the variants of the Cali Cream and Vanilla cream ale.
Yep.
And so I said, well, you know what? I got to try this. And I'll tell you what, it really impressed me because, again, being that I'm not a pumpkin ale fan, the spicing in this is just right with that vanilla cream ale backbone there to to kind of fill it in. It's really an enjoyable beer. So, can you talk about what the base beer is, and then what went about creating the right spice mix to make this
Sure.
spiced pumpkin ale?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's so like I said, it's the first one we've ever done. This is actually the brainchild of one of my brewers that's been with me for, oh gosh, he's been with me in Idaho for 7 years. And actually me and him brewed together at Stone Brewing back at the beginning when I first got into it. And this is, he always has fun with names, and every brew that we finish, the brewers send out an email, and he's always kind of known for tacking on like little quips and jokes and stuff like that. And it was Halloween. He was actually brewing on Halloween and came up with the name. And a lot of the artwork,
Mm.
not entirely, but he had tacked in the Scooby Doo bus and all the guys hanging out, driving over the covered bridge and all that kind of stuff, and kind of caught the fancy of our sales manager. And he's like, honestly, this is a really good idea. And so we kind of started toying around with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the beer itself has pumpkin in the mash, so traditional pumpkin beer.
Okay.
Otherwise, it is built exactly the same as Cali Creamin. We do add a little bit of lactose to the boil just to kind of offset the spices. The spices can be pretty aggressive, and so that allows us to kind of soften it
Mm-hmm.
up a little bit. But I'm with you, so I'm not. I do drink my traditional pumpkin beers. I'll have a couple every year. And for us, we just really
Mm-hmm.
wanted to strike like a good amount of balance in this style. It's something that, needs to be approachable. And also for Cali Creamin drinkers, we know that, smooth is one of the main descriptors that's on the can.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to kind of stick with
Mm-hmm.
that. So we didn't want to like punch it out and make it really aggressive. So we kind of laid it up really nice. It was funny. We started at the beginning with like kind of trying to use some of the caption spices, pumpkin pie spices that are out there, and really
Mm-hmm.
played with it. And we just kept like, we'd find one, we're like, oh, we need more of this, either it needs more cinnamon or it needs more nutmeg or it needs more whatever, spice we thought it was missing. And really what ended up happening was Matt Watterson, our head brewer, just kept toying with it and playing with it and coming up with different ones, and basically built his own pumpkin pie spice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what ended up being in the beer. So that it all goes in the whirlpool. It's actually powdered spice. So it's honestly, it's a pretty easy beer to make, but it really comes through the fermentation, kind of softens the edges on it, and it really just made it a really, really
Yeah.
easy drinker. And I will admit, again, I'm good for a 6-pack of probably pumpkin beer a year, and I thought this one I've actually had several of, and I've really enjoyed it. I think it's a pretty approachable, nice beer, and like you said, just a perfect kind of spin off of what Cali Creamin is.
You guys nailed it.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We
I
sold it
agree.
really fast, which is the
This
other
is
funny
one. Well, that's just a sign that this is a keeper.
Oh,
If you can
absolutely.
repeat this process every year, this is definitely one that I'll pick up. This is my third one now. I had one. I went camping this weekend, my last camping trip of the season, and I said, I'm going to take one of these with me so I can try it again. I really enjoyed it at the brewery. I want to see how the can tastes. I'm like, holy smokes, this beer is just fantastic, especially on a little cooler evening with the campfire going. It was
Yeah.
just like a perfect beer for that. I mean, I think that it might not be enough spice for my wife, but for me, it's just a perfect amount, and I really am digging this beer. So cheers out to Matt for picking just the right
Nailed it.
spice blend and making this beer really good.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, it's always fun too to see a beer kind of come up from an idea on the brewer on the floor that's putting it together every day, and something that they're kind of kicking around in their head. And it's awesome when it kind of catches fire and it gets going. And like I said, his original
Yeah.
concept really kind of like made it to the can. I mean, it's a little bit different, obviously,
Hmm.
but it's pretty close. And
Yeah.
and a lot of the kind of the artwork and the cartoony aspect of it, but the sharp edges and all that, I thought it really pops. The colors are perfect. The beer really did come
Yeah.
together really nice.
Yeah. The can art, as you can tell, I collect bottles, cans, everything. This is my real room that we record in. It's full of all 4 walls are completely covered in beer cans and bottles. This is a keeper because you're right. The artwork it really works well. Um, do you have an in-house art person, or when Matt gave the concept of what he wanted with this, did you just like describe it and then you have an in-house art person that wrote it up, or how did the artwork come about?
Well, so the brewer, like I said, like kind of tacked in. He copied and pasted and sliced and diced off the internet and built his own version
Oh,
of it, which kind of laid down the background for it. And then yeah, we have a
okay.
graphic designer that works with us on all of our designs, and her and our marketing manager, who's one of the owners, Kamran, they kind of took it and ran with it. And again, like you said, it's one of those good
Okay.
ideas, and when everybody kind of sees it, they're just like, oh. Yeah, this is it. This is where we're going, and I mean, they did it quick, they did it well, and it looks really nice.
Oh, good. Excellent. All right. Well, I think we did pretty good. We keep this one nice, short and sweet. We got to the point. Great pumpkin ale, even for people that don't like them. If you had an opportunity to find it, it sounds like it's already gone.
It's out.
Go
It's
get
out
it.
in the market. We went through the brewery. It went through really quick. Pre-orders were really high, and
Okay.
I mean, it went far and wide on distribution. So it's in all of our major markets. So it's in California, Arizona, Nevada, Idaho,
Okay.
and Montana.
Excellent. Excellent. All right.
And
Well, we'll
one
keep.
can made it to Florida.
And one can made
Coast to coast.
Right.
yeah, and I was gonna say with the weather you've been having, I am very impressed with FedEx or UPS or whoever got this beer over to you. That's awesome because
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering.
There were zero updates. Denny sent it out to me on what,
Yeah.
the 8th. There were zero updates,
Tuesday, the next morning. Yeah.
and then this late morning, early afternoon, I got that knock on the door, walked outside, and there was a box.
That's awesome. I kind of like picture like just
Yeah.
some poor guy running through like a hurricane with a box of beer.
Ah,
Here you
man.
go.
Yeah. It's been nice, man. The upside to hurricanes is, we're normally 92 degrees and, 126% humidity, but man, like it's been nice, thankfully. The last couple of days have been tolerable.
That's good. And you get to enjoy some beers after that. That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right. Well, now let's get into let's put you on the hot seat a little bit, Kris. We're going to find out about your craft beer journey. Now, these aren't that hard of questions, but they are some thought-provoking questions to learn about, the beers you like and how you got into craft beer. So, first off, we just like to hear people's craft beer origin stories. So, when and where and how did you discover craft beer? When did you finally take the leap away from that college beer, that easy to get, cheaper beers, and decide you really enjoy drinking craft beer?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I went to college in San Luis Obispo in California at Cal Poly. Worked on a biochemistry degree, which was kind of where my world was going to go. I was going to get into the pharmaceutical world and work on some fun projects and really try to change the world through the pharmaceutical lens in a different way. But kind of went that direction. And while I was in college, I mean, sure, tons of natural ice and Bud Light
Hmm.
and all the fun stuff that you drink when you're in college, whatever you can get for as much as you can get for as cheap as you can. But I mean, at the time I was there, Firestone Walker was really kind of starting
Mm.
to hit the map. So this was I was in college 2004 to 2009. And so it's really when Firestone started. I mean, they were around, but they were really starting to find their legs. And so I kind of was around. We started picking up some stuff here and there. There's a few like little pubs that were in town that we were always kind of interested, tried stuff. Not really a huge thing, just kind of whenever the mood struck, we'd try a porter from the local brewery or whatever the case was. And so kind of fast forwarding to my last year of college, I actually had 2 quarters free because I was waiting for all of the courses that I had to finish in my super senior 5th year to be available. And of course, they all landed in 1 quarter. So in 1 quarter, I took 4 of my hardest classes in college together. But
Mm.
anyway, that gave me 2 quarters free. And so I decided to work in the lab at a winery. And so I ended up doing that. Kind of got into the lab side, like doing pretty basic analysis and started asking the winemaker if I could get out in the cellar and like help out, like when we had free time. And so he was like, sure. So I'd go out and help sort grapes and eventually started, helping them start fermentations. And then, once we were done with stuff, like doing transfers into some of our holding tanks and barreling down and all this fun stuff. And I had a blast with it. Honestly, I loved a lot of things about the wine industry, except for the just general seasonality of it. So, I mean, it's awesome and crazy for like 3 months. And then, the rest of the year is making sure barrels are okay, moving stuff around, checking inventory, a little bit of packaging and stuff like that. So I love that. But while I was there, I worked for Justin Vineyards in Paso Robles, and I mean that's right by Firestone Walker. And during that time, I really started to spend a lot of like afternoons having a couple of beers at Firestone, and that's really when the like wheels started to turn. Like, this is kind of cool. This is an interesting thing. I had one of my college buddies, like he homebrewed like twice while we were in college. The beer was terrible, but we thought it was awesome. And so that was it. And then, I got out of college and got into the pharmaceutical world, did that for about a year, and kind of quickly realized I wanted a little bit more of like a after work, life. I wanted to be able to go out with my coworkers, and, ended up in a lot of cases going to breweries or going to, bars and trying beers and stuff. And it didn't really have that in the pharmaceutical world. So I kind of washed out, so to speak. And ended up in San Diego, and I went and stood in line at Stone Brewing Company for 2 hours to get a 5-minute interview with one of the cellar managers, and ended up kind of jumping in. But yeah, I mean, the beers that really pulled me in was Double Barrel Ale from Firestone. Was one of my absolute favorites, especially at the very beginning when it was really, a lot of it was fermented in oak. Just fell in love with it. Because of the wine side, I kind of fell in love with oak age stuff anyway. But that, and then honestly, Arrogant Bastards up on that list, Stone IPA's up on that list, and Sculpin is probably the original Sculpin was probably the last beer that really pushed me over. Like, when people are like, what got you into IPAs? That's usually the beer that I would say. That and Racer 5 and Stone IPA really was just like, oh, okay, this is actually cool. And honestly, when I went to the job interview, it wasn't even it was just kind of like on a whim. I was like, oh, look, they're having an open house. Like, I'll go check it out. And it just kind of fell in my lap. But yeah, I kind of always knew, my dad drank beer when I was a kid, and he tended to like try like different stuff. And so I had some exposure as like when I was in high school and in early college, and then just friends that enjoy good things, and we enjoyed Firestone and being a part of the vibe. And so it just kind of all fell together.
Yeah. No, great. I love DBA. That beer was so good.
Oh yeah. It honestly, I wish, like, I honestly can't really find it very much in Idaho. I think I've seen it a couple times. It changed a lot because once they got into really heavy production, they couldn't do as much in oak. But it is an incredible beer. And honestly, Firestone and Brindleson are probably the brewery that really I wanted to emulate for a long time. Like, I thought, when he was doing Union Jack at the time, I thought it was an awesome beer. When Pivo came out, I thought that beer was incredible. Like, a lot of beers that we, kind of take for granted now, he was actually brewing a lot of those styles earlier on. It just is a matter of when the market actually hit. So there was kind of, I'm lucky to just have lived in that world, in that area at that time. And then on top of that, and I think I might have mentioned this, Denny, when we were talking, like, one night, me and the assistant winemaker for Justin were at a bar in Paso, just drinking a beer, hanging out. One beer turned into 2 beers, turned into, I don't know, 5 beers. Ended up.
That's how it usually goes.
Yeah, and this is like pre-Uber, so I had to, call my girlfriend who's in San Francisco 30 minutes away and be like, hey, you gotta come get me. But we were drinking beers, and we get to the end of the night, and we go to square up with the bartender, and she's like, oh, your beers are paid for. And we're like, oh, well, okay. And we're like, oh, she's like, oh, he left a card. And so she hands us the card, and I can't remember. It was one of the Firestone Walker like owners, and it just said, "Thanks for the kind words. Beers are on me." And
wow.
I was like, the world was calling to me at this point. I'm like, all right, I need to be looking at going this direction. Even though I took a little bit of a hiatus after that, it was like, I look back at it and I'm like, boy, that really just kind of fell in my lap.
That's awesome.
Man.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to listen to what the world's telling you. It's there.
Or man, it just goes, you go that way, go right down that road. Just go.
Just ignore the last like 6 years, 5 years of your life, whatever you're doing. Just make a right and go, go wherever you feel like.
I mean,
it's
Dude, I have a degree in culinary arts and I train dogs for a living. So, you know.
Fair enough. Exactly.
Yeah. So, Kris, do you have a favorite beer style, or do you have like a go-to beer that you'll grab?
That's really funny. It's changed based on the places I've lived. As far as my go-to
Uh,
beer, obviously locality is huge. Um, I definitely am an IPA guy, pretty much through and through. Like I said, I had those beers that kind of led me into it, and then obviously working at Stone, like 90% of what you do is like open hot boxes because that's obviously their bread and butter. But that's definitely my style. I mean, we also lean into lagers a lot. As I've been in the industry longer, I love IPAs, but I mean, if you're out and doing events and stuff, that like the lower ABV stuff kind of
yeah.
starts to play a little bit bigger role. And
Yeah.
so kind of fell in love with Pilsners because I really believe that Pilsners are really the Germans version of an IPA. And I think that's kind of like, I know it's not the origin story that we all hear as far as barrels and going from, England over to India, but at the same time, I think that really started to kind of set the tone. And so I'm a really big Pilsner fan as well. Something that we're really working on getting better at. And then my go-to beer, like right now, my go-to beer in Idaho is Bodhisattva. I mean, obviously our beers, I drink my beers all the time.
Right.
But if I'm going to go buy a beer off the shelf, Bodhi seems to dominate that. They also have this miraculous power of making sure that whenever I pick up a six pack in the
It's on
state,
sale.
it's like, well, no, it's not on sale, but it's like usually less than like 2 weeks old, which
Oh
just
yeah,
blows my
yeah,
mind.
it's
So
Perfect.
fresh. Yeah.
as an IPA drinker, the name of the game is fresh. If you really want what the brewer intended, you've got to make sure it's pretty young and been handled well. And so Bodhi's my big one up here. Racer 5 was a big one for me for a long time.
Mm.
And honestly, like it's like being in San Diego, 2000, like being in the craft scene from 2010 to about 2016 when we moved up here, like there were so many good IPAs being made regularly, like Pupil from Society in San Diego,
Mm.
Nelson Citrus Centennial IPA. Absolutely changed my world early on. That was probably one of the first IPAs that I was just like, okay, whatever you guys are doing to make this, I want to do that. Um, Man, I was trying to think. There's a lot, and I mean, as a brewer, I probably move around and experiment more than the average person. I'm always kind of looking for whatever's new, and I've got brewers that I kind of watch. I've got friends now all over the industry, so I'm always watching. Mike, one of my good buddies is a brewer at Fremont, so I try a lot of their stuff whenever they're coming out something new. Breakside's been somebody up here I've fallen in love with as far as a brewery. Like he makes incredible beer. Ben's a really good guy. So it moves. Freem is another one. We finally get Freem in the Valley here,
Yeah.
and they are pretty exceptional. They've won some medals in the Pilsner world in Europe that had never previously really been accessible to American brewers. So,
Yeah.
like I said, I move around a lot, but yeah, lagers, especially like Pilsners and Helles and a lot of German style lagers, and then IPAs. Anything from a pale ale all the way up to a triple IPA. Just depends on how the mood strikes me and what's good. But those are really my styles. I like a lot of the other stuff. I mean, we've got a pretty awesome brown. I mean, I really will make and or drink anything. I find in like making and writing recipes, a lot of it's really identifying like what you're really trying to do, what kind of like where you're going with it. I think that's where like as you brew more and more and more and more, and if you look back and you've got thousands upon thousands of recipes under your belt, like you start to think about recipes a little bit different, and you start to think about your terroirs and what they had and what was traditional, and so like we brew it all. But yeah, if anybody asked me if I had to have one beer for the rest of my life, it'd be an IPA for sure.
Okay.
Pulled my headphones out.
All right. So how
Big
about a
ogre.
beer style that you disliked at first, but you grew to enjoy over time? A style, just one style. Just got to be one, right? Just got to be something you tried at one point that you like, it's not for me. And then you came back to it and realized that you were wrong and found some that you enjoyed.
I'm especially coming from the wine world, I'm pretty open on that. Like there's not a lot of things that I would ever like turn around and be like, no. Early on, probably the sour world was a little bit interesting to me. That's to me, as far as flavors go, is a pretty big jump, especially like old school sours, right? You're talking wild fermented barrel aged stuff. That's, in my opinion, like the way sours are kind of meant to be. that side, I think first few, I was just like, okay, this is too much. And you just kind of slowly fall in love with them. At GABF, about the time I started to really fall in love with them, I was with Mother Earth and we were at GABF and had like, I think 3 or 4 of my brewers with me. We were having a great time. And we decided when we got there, let's go check out all these cool sour houses. This is when Crooked Stave took off and all that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Learned a valuable lesson about going to GABF and starting with sours. You end with sours. You don't start with sours. But yeah, I think sours were probably the most interesting for me. I mean, God, in today's world, like nothing's really off limits. And in the sour world now too, I have a lot of respect because we just saw Cascade Barrel House go away.
I know. I was going to say, it's so sad.
One of my aha breweries for sure. I remember once I started getting into sours, my parents live in Portland, so getting to spend some time there and really being blown away with what they offer.
Yeah.
And even in the Lost Abbey, like change arounds and all this stuff. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more, but it's hard to watch some of those breweries kind of go. And especially because I really have a lot of respect for that particular style, especially the real like barrel aged wild stuff that you just are kind of at the whim of whatever happens. And a lot of that stuff's real good. And that stuff is real, real hard to make well. Like that is a skill that very few people on this planet have.
Yeah.
It's probably why it doesn't sit well with so many people's palates.
You're not into sours?
I mean, I like the sours, but the wild fermented stuff, I just can't. I'll try pretty much anything. And we say all the time, look, if you don't like a certain style, you just haven't tried the right one yet.
Keep trying.
So we just keep trying them. So.
And that's I got to do the Cantillon thing in Belgium in like 2018. Me and my wife went out there and did a European tour, which really for us just meant going to a bunch of breweries all over Europe. Yeah, and we went to Oktoberfest, but I did end up in Cantillon in Brussels, and we that was honestly I kid you not, do you know what Swansea Day is? So that's their their big release day for all of their vintage or their sours that are coming out that year. I ended up at Cantillon on Swansea Day, totally unplanned, just happened to kind of be there. And to be a fly on the wall and to sit in that room and drink beers and see all the stuff going around is pretty awesome.
Wow, nice.
Remember
that road you went down a few years prior?
Exactly. Even weirder. Yeah. Even weirder was we walked in and we were there the day before. And I'm kind of like looking at the board and I'm like trying to pick what I'm going to drink. And all of a sudden I hear Kris. And I'm like, I'm in Belgium. Like, who knows where I'm going to turn around. And my ex-boss at the time from Stone was there. He's like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I don't know. I like beer. What are you doing here? So, yeah, it is a small world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Kris, what would you say is a brewery or a beer that doesn't get enough love?
Oh, there's a good question. A brewery or a beer that doesn't get enough love. All right, I'll start with the beer. The Schwartz beer, the dark lager.
Yes.
As a brewer, every time I throw it to my team and I'm like, what do you guys want to make? And it could be August and be 108 degrees in the brewery. They're like, black lager. And I'm like, really?
See, Denny, those are your people.
I love it. I know. I know. There's a reason why I love Mother Earth, even though you don't brew. I mean, you did do a dark lager not too long ago, right?
We've done versions of it. I hate to throw my management team under the bus. I like tiptoe around it. I always have to kind of like reinvent it a little bit and be like, we're making an amber lager because people like that style. And but then as soon as I'm like, I'm making a sports beer, they're always like, no, we can't sell it. And I'm like, we're really excited for this winter because that'll definitely be something that pops up on the radar at the tasting room on our little system.
So I'm so excited because I will drink up every dark lager. I love Schwartz beer, and you're right. Nobody brews it except for small, like pubs and stuff that have have a smaller system. They can they can sell a smaller batch, but anyone that has a large production brewery, it's hard. You're right. It's hard for them to sell that dark lager, but man, they're so good. And I think if people just give it a try, they would really appreciate it as well.
I mean, just brew a 10-gallon batch, save a pony keg for Denny, and then sell the rest of it at the brewery.
No, because my brewers will drink, if I give them each a keg, that'll go away pretty fast. Like I said, that is always the the loudest voice in the room when it comes to like what style do you guys want to brew.
Well, it sounds
And
like early Christmas presents.
yeah, exactly. And as far as breweries go, it's a really interesting question. I've got a lot of friends in different breweries around, and a lot of them, as they're kind of making their way and making their names in the industry, make a lot of really good stuff. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head that I would say like, man, like these guys are really just absolutely, obliterating it. Like, I mean, if you're not from Boise, I think that Lance and Boise Brewing, as far as like the dark stuff goes, is pretty unparalleled in the country. So if you're a stout lover, like he definitely is like a huge winner there. And I mean another one, and I think we talked about this, Denny, and I don't know if that's why this is kind of popped in my head, but like Chuck and Nut up in Washington or up in the Seattle area, Lager House. No one knows who he is as far as like the kind of more the average drinker goes, but this guy has been taking down medals at competitions and making just really nice beer for a really long time. Yeah. But I mean, there's so many little guys that are taking off and doing cool stuff, and there's so much creativity in the industry right now in general. But like it's hard for me to pick one brewery that I think is really kind of punching under their weight class. It's just a matter of time before they kind of get found. Like I got a buddy that like the Stone team. Stone was always kind of the training ground, especially in like 2010 when everybody was trying to get in and learn. So we all go there and kind of cut our teeth and then broke off and did our own stuff. And I got a buddy in Ventura at Topa Topa, makes really, really good beer. He's grown a lot. Another buddy that's running Version Brewing in San Diego, who's made a huge name for himself and done really well. One of my ex-brewers is running Abnormal in San Diego, who has a pretty big name, but small shop and does really good stuff. I know Matt's, I think it's his cousin, runs Level in Portland. They also make some really good stuff.
I like Level. Level's cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many brewers doing different things. I mean, Wayfinder's another one. If you're not from this side, that makes some really good lagers. Heater Allen's really cool. I mean, I could go for
there's
days and days and days. There's a bunch of really good beer out there. But and even in that, like a lot of people know who those guys are. As far as like up and comings, I'd have to think about that one. As far as who I think's really gonna hit big here pretty soon. But like I said, there's great beer. I mean, Roadhouse in Jackson Hole. Like I like what Max is doing out there. He's done a really nice job. There's some good stuff out there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's another good one for you. You can pick one of the three, or you can answer all three. It doesn't matter. But is there a brewery, a beer, or a beer style that is no longer around that you wish would make a comeback?
Oh,
like some beer that you love that is no longer being brewed, and you wish that they would, it would make a comeback for whatever reason, or a brewery that went out of business that was sad for you to lose, to see it go. And I mean,
to see it go away. Yeah. I mean, honestly, a lot of the guys, as far as breweries go, the guys that have done a really good job are really kind of still kicking. I would really like to see, and it's an in-depth question and could go really deep into the answer on it, but like honestly, Original Stone IPA and Racer 5, which I've already mentioned in this, I would love to go. I wish I could go back in time, and this is a sensory problem with beer in general, because beer has a shelf life and it's limited, and hops are vintage and have their own vintages in their own way. I mean, there's consistency, but things change. What they were making in Stone IPA and Racer 5 back in the day, as far as the Centennial hops that were in this world, I miss some of those really Centennial forward IPAs. You don't really see that anymore. The world has moved on to the Mosaics and Citrus and everything else. That's one I would probably like to see. But honestly, I mean, the industry's followed a lot of the trends that I like. I mean, I guess I could say this. I do miss. Okay, actually, I'll take this back because it just hit me. Black IPAs, so Cascadian Dark Ales.
Thank you, man. We were like brothers.
You guys are basically related.
You're calling everything.
It's so funny because I am not a dark beer drinker through and through. I'm not. I like them. They were definitely involved in my like getting me into beer. But like I made Brewed Sublimely Self-Righteous at Stone when I was there, and I absolutely love that beer. There's been a couple of other versions of beers that I've had where like there's only a few beers really in your life that you're just like, holy cow, Like, this is incredible. And I was trying to think what my best example of that. Sublimely was up there. There's a couple other Cascadian Dark Ales that I really liked. A style you never see anymore. And even Wookie Jack was really good when he was doing it, but
Wookie
it
Jack.
died.
Great.
You know, I was trying to think. It's like Pivo. I was talking about that earlier. Like Italian Pilsners, which I think are going to make a comeback anyway, and are getting it to show up more and more anyway. But like Pivo was so far ahead of its time when it landed. The brewing industry just hadn't gotten there yet. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it's going to go back to the red ales, the browns. You know, browns were a big one for me. We've got a really good brown recipe that I absolutely love. I don't get to brew it very often. You don't see the browns and the ambers and that stuff as much anymore. You do when you get out. I was laughing because like when I go, you know, camping or whatever we're doing, or like if I'm skiing in the summer or in the winter, you get into these pubs that are out in these small towns and stuff, and you see a lot more of those styles kind of come back. Some of that I missed, but at the same time, like I'm really happy to see like where we're going, and I am a big proponent and supporter of the hop industry in general. And so seeing that kind of get bigger than just the IPAs, I think is cool. And like I said, like seeing a Pilsner, an American style Pilsner that's done in the same idea of like control and restraint as a German Pilsner, but done with American hops. I'm not talking about making a lager version of an IPA. I'm just talking about like really striking that balance and showing off like what a lot of these growers are doing these days. That's kind of where I'm at right now in the industry. I think is still in that hop world. And so I'm still excited to see where things are going. I mean, and I will say this, the barrel aged sour is definitely still on that list as well, because the kettle sour came through and essentially ended its life. And that's kind of sad. And even the bourbon barrel aged world has really softened up, even to the point where now to get a bourbon barrel aged beer, and we make them, but I mean, to make like, you just get them with they're high adjunct and stuff like that. There's some really neat styles like old ales and barley wines that in the world of production brewing now are kind of bad words, because they like your sales team just immediately is like, I can't, you put barley wine on that can, like it's not going to sell. Or we talked about this too, Denny. I mean, pale ales, another good example. Great, you know, a little lower ABV, different balanced style for an IPA. That just doesn't move anymore, to the point where brewers now just make IPAs and just make them at a lower ABV, and it's like that's an IPA.
Just make light IPAs to appeal to everyone's health kick.
Exactly, but you just call it an IPA, and
call it something else.
Yeah, I mean, if I can get the calorie content down and somehow figure out how to crack that code, I would definitely do that. If I can make a healthy version of an IPA, oh my god, we would be the biggest brewery in the world.
Yeah, it's so good. Well, Kris, I feel like you guys get a go at this next question on a regular basis. So I'm going to ask it a little differently. Do you have a beer name in the chamber that you're like itching to use? Or if you were going to name a brewery, what would you call it?
Oh my God. Okay. So naming a brewery, I think, is the hardest question ever. Like I would rather answer some obscure quantum mechanics question than that, because there's so many breweries now.
Yeah.
That even if something strikes your fancy, you like Google it and it's like that.
Yeah.
And names for us, I think that naming, so in the first, like I say, the first like 6-7 years of my career, like I really like, we were always kind of like come up with a name and then write beers behind it. And now it's gotten so much more difficult because there's just so many names out there. So for Mother Earth's process, honestly, Dan Love, the owner, still does a lot of the naming. Really? But it takes a ton of just like, he'll like write out a list of like 20 names. And then you just go through and we just chop them down and see like, okay, what is out there? What's going to get us in trouble if we cross over? Like, so like Ascent, our new IPA that's getting ready to come out, like that took a lot of time, and it took a lot of like, I mean, there's probably 150 iterations before you finally go like, we can get the trademark so we can put it on a can, and you know, we can do this. You know, in a one-off world, it's not as bad. And I mean, the brewers, unfortunately, we've kind of had our naming rights stripped away from us to some degree. The world's gotten more sensitive, and so we have to be very careful.
Okay.
And brewers are not built for sensitive. So, like, I told Denny this too. We had in San Diego, I had a hip hop series. So we were just making a bunch of IPAs and just naming them after ridiculous hip hop songs. And we did one like right when the movie came out, we did an NWA one. It was Nelson with Attitude.
Nice.
And that was the last time I got to name a beer because somebody said that we were being
I see.
And Dan was like, I don't think the brewers can name beers anymore. And I was
yeah,
like,
that's fair.
Names are hard. Like that, like I said, that is one of the hardest questions. And like naming a brewery, like you go to the Mother Earth, like naming and the origin and all that. And I mean, we ended up in a small like squabble over who owns the name and that kind of stuff, just on something like that. I mean, Mother Earth's it makes sense, and it's well, obviously it has a meaning to every person that would say that or read it. So it is really, really difficult. Even in 2010 was difficult to get a name down and get that done. And it's hard. And you see good ones all the time. The best part about going to like a competition like GABF or World Beer Cup is just hearing the names read off when somebody wins. So when I dunkled in my pants, Dunkelweizen wins gold every year from what's their name? From SoCal Brewery. God, I'm gonna blank on it. Well, anyway, but you hear those. Cherry Busey was a sour that won forever, and you just hear all the brewers in the place giggle. Yeah, so I mean, it's a little bit of a badge for sure, but it's tough. But there's still some good ones out there.
Yeah, you get some pretty clever ones, and one of the things that at least happened to me, and I know a couple of our other listeners, we buy beers on two things. One, the label art. We like I take labels. Like I'm going to do it with the Cali Screamin Ale, and I put it on a magnet. And then I can stick it to my beer fridge, right? But like I'll be like, that's a really cool can label. And I'll go, it's worth it. Let's give it a shot. Or I get the name. I get this random name, like Cherry Busey. Yeah, I'm going to buy that.
Yep.
I'm going to buy that.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I buy it. You really only get one impression. So you sit there and look at it and you're like, yeah, that wins. Let's go.
Yeah. I tell a story all the time about how when Lagunitas first came into the Boise area back in 2003-ish, sometime there, 2 or 3. I saw the bottles on the refrigerator, and what caught my eye was they brought in the censored beer, and all it had was the name with this big black censored over it. I'm like, well, I got to have that because it's obviously censored. And that's what got me to even pick up the first 6-pack that I bought. And then I realized what was inside was fantastic. And then I started drinking, more of the stuff and realized, man, Lagunitas. Well, first off, I couldn't even say Lagunitas because I was like, Laguntas, what's going on?
Lagunitas.
Yeah. But it took just that one look, that one censored thing caught my interest. I said, well, if this is censored, it's got to be something special, and it was. I
mean, marketing's real, and like I said, you get about like 2 seconds, 3 seconds on a shelf when somebody takes a look at it for them to be like, I'll pick that. And you're right, and name wins a lot. And it's actually funny because the flip side to that is like a lot of stuff you got to be careful with too, because I mean, like what we think is hilarious or what somebody might think is hilarious, somebody else is going to be like, nah. And I mean, you're trying to sell a decent amount of beer to people, it's you really. I mean, even just to like use Cali Creamin as an example, Cali Creamin sells awesome in California. Sells well in other markets, but usually where there's a good amount of California transplants. Not everybody views California the same as California does. So like you end up with these really interesting spinoffs on names. And to the point where I would even say like I step away from the question because I'm like, at some point it had to be kind of relinquished to our marketing team and to Dan and that side of things to, like, you can fight this battle because it's a big one and it's important.
Yeah. All right. Well, Kris, you did a great job with that craft beer journey, and we finished our beer. So we're going to go into our next beer, and we're going to do the Vermillion Falls Hazy IPA.
Nice. Doesn't get washed out on my green screen. There we go.
Yeah, it's got no green in it.
That's got blue on it, so we're good.
And this is part of your Project X series, which I'm a huge fan of, and because we all like. I keep knocking my camera down because my leg is cramping, and so I'm trying to stretch it out. But when I stretch it out, I hit my cable. But this is part of your Project X series, and this is a 7.2%. It's not a small IPA either, and but from what you say on the can here, it contains Vic's Secret HBC 586 was one of my favorite new hops, and Simcoe hops. A little old school there too. So I guess when we crack this open and we start to taste it, why don't you go ahead and give us a little insight on what the Project X series is all about?
For sure. So, I mean, early on, you start to package as a brewery and you start to kind of get volume. What ends up happening is a lot of the times it becomes hard to find time to really stretch your creative legs. And like I said, we've always been kind of an IPA forward group of drinkers as far as like the company is concerned. It's actually something that I talk about a lot and like our leadership teams and stuff like that is like, I love Cali Cream. We make Cali Cream, and we are like so committed to it. But the reality of it is that like Dan and me and Conrad and our guys, like we also really enjoy IPA. So it's always been part of it. And so we've done a couple of series in the life of Mother Earth. One was the Resonator series where we did a different West Coast IPA every quarter, but it was the same 4 beers every year. Yeah. And after that, we just kind of looked at it and I was like, it was fun for the first year and a half, 2 years. And then I was like, I really want to continue to innovate. And so we started talking about it. And so I really kind of giggled because when the Project X came across the line as being like the name, I was like, well, that seems like really obvious. But it really hit the note because what ended up happening was like that kind of kicked off marketing, and then marketing's like sitting here and going like, we can switch up the art and we can do all this stuff. And, and Hazy's had really become this driving factor where a lot of that creativity and artwork became a big deal. And it gave us a bit like, it just kept morphing. And then at the beginning of Project X, there were different ABVs and different, setups all together. And then as we've done it more and more, the base beer has stayed relatively similar because really what me and Matt wanted to focus on each release was just making a new hop combo and making something that's different. Hazies are a little harder sometimes to show off like the nuances of different varietals. Hazies can get a little singular noted at times. I love them, but they can. And like if you pick them up off the shelf, a lot of them have similar notes to them. So we wanted to really push it. And so we do a lot of kind of off the cuff like combinations. This is like a Matt Watterson brainchild when it comes to our hop combos for sure. And a lot of it's, taking what we know those tasting notes to be and what you read they are, and then what we actually believe them to be. And then trying to get like with like and get contrast in certain things like that. And so we push it pretty hard. And the reality of is the Project X name was perfect. I mean, the base beer stays the same now. They're always 7.2. But we just rotate hops and it makes a completely different beer every release. And that's the whole heart of it. I mean, it does sell on the shelf as a hazy. I mean, really, if you really get into where Project X came from, it was supposed to be any style that we wanted to make. But in the first couple iterations, hazies, I think were like the first 4 or 5 when we started doing it because they were really hot at the time, and that was what we wanted to brew. And then a couple of grocery authorizations came with it. And then at that point, we're like, okay, well, we're making hazy IPAs. That's what this is going to be. But like I said, it's a really good way for me and Matt to step out of our, big contracted hops and the stuff we have and say, hey, we want to try this. And so this particular release, like we talked about Denny and our fresh hop as well, we use 586. 586 has been an up and coming hop for, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years. They just named it this year. So it's really been small lots and hasn't been a lot of acreage every year, but super cool hop, grows really well in Idaho. Which we always have, some roots here. And then we also had the Vic Secret contract, which is an Australian hop. And for a long time when Galaxy was Galaxy was the big hop when it came out. Everybody used it and the acreage just skyrocketed. And then when they did that, the consistency kind of got a little bit unstable. And Vic Secret kind of came up as this is like a Galaxy replacement. We find it to be a little more aggressive than Galaxy, not quite as like soft fruit forward, like Galaxy's passion fruit, and tropical fruits forward. And Vic is a little more resinous. Still a lot of tropical fruit, but more on that like mango side of things, a little bit more of an acidic fruit kick. And so we dig that. And then our Simcoe is in this combination. Like if somebody was like, pick the one that doesn't fit, it would be Simcoe. And that's because we have Simcoe and Buku, which is our biggest, IPA. And we tend, when we select it, And so when we go out to the growers and they put a bunch of lots in front of us and we pick which ones we want, we tend to lean towards a lot more fruit forward Simcoe. So our Simcoe is typically a little bit of grapefruit, a lot of peach and a little bit of like tropical fruit, a little bit of mango, and a little bit of guava in it. So it's kind of a fun pairing because we're like, well, this is a really interesting way to tie this recipe together. But also, if you're a hop person and you're reading the label, you're going to sit there and be like, that doesn't make sense. But then for us, it really does. And so this one's kind of fun. This one is a little bit out of our norm, just in the sense that it's a really interesting combination. I think the last one that we did, and I will admit, every single Project X is a new name, and we've done 6 of them a year for the last like 4 years or 5 years. So I have a hard time remembering the names. But the one we just did, I think it was Metamorphosis, I think. Anyway, was a Citra Mosaic one, which was actually the first time we really went and just brewed kind of our traditional, like what people would traditionally put in a commercially available one. And so this one was a total like, okay, we did that one. Now let's just go completely off the reservation and make something kind of ridiculous. But it's also just been a fun way for us to kind of hone our skills on the hazy front. I don't think it's hard. We have a core hazy and heavy cloud, and I like heavy cloud a lot. It's hard to sell them because people in hazies are just kind of always looking for the latest and greatest,
the next best thing.
Yeah. And so we try to do that with this recipe, and it's cool. Every year, like me and Matt and the brewers get together and discuss what hop combos we want to use the next year. And then the marketing team gets together and goes through all the artwork that they want to use, and they have to go out and buy it from the artists and end up creating kind of that background. And then Dan goes through and sets up all of the naming conventions after he sees the artwork and kind of knows what the hop combinations are. And then you end up with this neat, like, collaborative project that kind of keeps the brewery fresh. I mean, if you work in a production brewery, like I worked at Stone, we brewed Stone IPA like 40 times a week, you know, and I mean, then you brewed the rest of it was, you know, the next other 20 brews was, you know, kind of the rest of the portfolio. So you all have that. We have Cali, which we do that with. And so they're kind of fun. And it just, every time a new one comes out, obviously the packaging team's stoked. The brewers are kind of paying attention to what's going on. So it adds a little bit of excitement in the brewery as well.
Okay. So let me give it's funny because as you were talking about the Project X series, I was, you know, getting my aroma hits. I was then taking some tastes, and first off the aroma, I definitely got some berry character. I'm guessing from the HBC 586, little bit of a berryness to there. But then I took a sip, and then that's kind of floating around there. But I then got that resinous kick with the grapefruit kind of resinous and bitterness in there, and then as it settles in, I could then pull out some of that sweeter mango that came out there too, and some tropical notes. But everything, it does work really well, and I appreciate the hazies now that can give you that soft kind of soft feeling up front, but then finishes with some bitterness to let you know that this is an IPA and not just drinking a soft smoothie.
It's gonna soften you up a little bit and then smack you in the face just a touch.
So that's a hazy IPA made by West Coast IPA brewers for sure. I do like to see balance in those, and a little bit more that we don't dry them out a ton, but we dry them out a little bit more. And so some of that sharpness will kind of show up there. And I think it's just like anything. It's a balance. I mean, a lot of people pick up, and this has been good and bad for Project X in the past. I mean, there's a lot of people really just want like a no bitterness IPA. And that's a thing. And I understand where that comes from. And again, for me, like beer without bitterness is just off balance to me, a little bit off kilter. And so I'm kind of the same as you. Like, I want my IPAs to tell me they're IPAs. I don't need them. I don't want to like wake up tomorrow morning and realize that I drank a bunch of IPAs the night before because my mouth is just like
you're dry.
Like eating Captain Crunch.
Exactly. But at the same time, like, we do strike for a little of that. But and the other thing with Project X is that's something that we'll toy with. So I mean, we will, turn that off and turn it on. And I think in this one, the bitterness is a little bit more pronounced as well because we did use Vic Secret. And Vic Secret is a massive alpha acid hop. So I mean, you're talking 18 to 20% alpha acid, which is kind of off the charts for a lot of aromatic hops. I mean, they're usually on the higher end, but you're usually talking somewhere between like 10 and 14. So Vic has quite a bit of oomph to it anyway, and I think it does show up in the dry hop. And as brewers, we're all kind of learning, like, on paper, bitterness doesn't show up unless you throw it in the boil. And the method that we use to test and measure bitterness is based on that reaction. So it won't, there's measured bitterness and there's perceived bitterness. And so it's really fun to see some of those interactions and see which hops will kick that up and which ones won't. So like the Metamorphosis, the last one, the Mosaic and Citra were a lot smoother. The beer finished at the same gravity as this one did, as Vermillion did. All the hopping like rates and stuff were the same. They were all turned down bitterness, but it's just funny because Vermillion showed up with a little bit more. But again, to a point, it's not a big deal. I mean, again, to the point where it's like really, not, coat your tongue, that kind of thing. You don't want to be that far, but at the same time, it's different. And again, it's supposed to be. If somebody's really following our Project X series, I don't want them to ever pick up two of them and be like, tastes like the last one.
And that's exactly why I don't think I've missed a single one of the releases of the Project X. From day one, I just fell in love with them, and almost all of them have been unique flavors that aren't like the other. I always feel like I'm getting something new, and maybe what I like about it too is that there's been some that have had like some are really like pronounced flavors and things like pop out really, really big. And then other ones are more subdued, and it feels like if you almost feel like, whoa, this is not as big of a beer that I'm used to. But then you sit back and kind of think about it and like, wait a minute, these are just different flavors that are more subtle, but really interact well together and make a great beer. Even though it's not like punch you in the face, big hop, it still has a very unique and enjoyable experience. And that's what I like about the Project X, is that every beer is a different experience, not the same old beer.
Yep. Well, and like I said, that's like you try to stay away from. To be honestly, the Metamorphosis was the first Mosaic Citra one I had ever made, but that was always the point. Was like, where can we go with this? And to your point, like especially early on, I used a lot of kind of random hops to be like, I had kind of hops in my brain grouped into different groups, and you try to stick with those groups. And so you'd end up with one that's like big berry, big melon, soft, sweet, and then you'd end up and turn around on one with big like citrus notes. And again, like it just becomes about being able to create that change or that variation in flavor to like keep it interesting. And it's the same for us. I mean, when it really comes down to it, we're just trying to make and test and play with beers that we also want to drink. So I don't want them all to taste the same either. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Buku, and it's tasted, been a pretty consistent product for a very long time.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, I still like to have a little bit of variation, and it's Project X, so that's kind of what we're going for.
Okay. Let's get back to the artwork though. You mentioned that you do commissions, or you get artwork from artists. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things in the very beginning of Project X. It seemed like you highlighted the fact that you were that you're in collaboration with artists. So you have you're creating a beer and you're linking it with an artist, and that was a unique thing too, which I was always looking forward to seeing what new artwork was going to be on the can. So is that still that's still the mission of the Project X, is to try to find, you mentioned actually that you find artwork and then you name the beer from what you see in the artwork. So can you just explain a little bit more about that process?
Yeah. So for a lot of it, like, is more of a discovery thing. So when we're out looking at art, we don't like commissioning artists necessarily draw us a label. We have done that before. It's not that we are against that. A lot of it is trying to get the artwork all together and get that project completed in a timely fashion and get it ready for beer calendars and all the fun stuff that goes with it. So a lot of it is us actually just kind of going out and shopping artwork. And so, and honestly, it kind of comes from everywhere. And so when we go out, we end up buying the artwork so that we can use it on the can, like legally. And then on top of that, there are artists that want to participate more than others. Some are happy to sell the artwork and that's it. And then we move on. And some we can tag in, try to work into our social media aspect of things, some
Yeah.
that, even potentially get tied into like an event or something along those
Mm-hmm.
lines. And they come from all over. I mean, I want to say there's been a handful, a good amount that have been, pulled from artists outside the United States. And so it's really just, in the internet of things in the world it is now, you really have access to a lot of that. So you kind of pull it in and just able to, I mean, it's kind of, instead of going through one single artist and getting, one image that kind of goes with it, allows you to kind of bounce all over, but also kind of give back to the artistic, that community and what they're trying to do and what they're trying to do with their artwork. And so that, and, and I mean, it takes a ton of effort to design labels and stuff. So this just became this like really neat, like, double-edged sword where we're like, okay, well, this is really cool because we can get back and find these cool artists, but at the same time, we don't have to be we're not beholden to any single artist, so we can actually create a lot of variation in it.
Yeah.
And so like we just internally released next year's can art. And so, I mean, it happens, it's a process, but it kind of happens. And usually around this time, so that September timeframe, we start to see what the next ones are going to look like and what the mock-ups are going to be. And Dan's usually gone through names at that point. Like I said, it's kind of a, art happens, the hops happen, those come together, the name happens, and then the designs and then the labels start coming out, which is really fun. And like I said, it's really neat. And some artists really love being a part of it. And, I've shipped beer to Japan or Brazil or wherever just to kind of give back to the guys and let them see what we did with it. And, it's a fun process. Actually, it's something that I really like. It's every year we talk about what Project X is and where it's going. And I think it's something that we'll see for a long time, as far as just something that we really enjoy having. And I think it's the like perfect way to express hazy IPAs, because that's really what people are looking for when it comes to that style.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Well, great beer. Doesn't disappoint. I mean,
very good.
I haven't been disappointed by a Project X beer yet, so I wasn't surprised. This is the first time I've had this one, and it's very enjoyable. And you're right. I also, as it's warming up a little bit more, I'm starting to get some guava notes in there as well, in the mids. But still, it's which I think is also bringing out some of the bitterness in the beer, or maybe some like zing. I always call it zing. Like when you get some ripe, some ripe fruit, you get that kind of like ripe zing. I'm getting a little of that in here too, but
Nice.
it's really, really enjoyable. So this one's been released to the market already, or is it coming out?
So Vermillion's out right now. It's actually funny because the way that brewery timelines happen is always kind of strange. So like we're brewing actually today. The next version of Project X is called Spirit Animal. And this first batch brewed today. So when I told you that we were having problems with the water, it was that beer. But another hop combination, and like hazies have a bunch of oats and a lot of wheat and just a highly adjuncted like grain bill. And so in like any good brewer, we were trying to get a little bit more efficiency out of it and tighten up a little too tight. So the runoff a little sorry. But anyway, we're always kind of the next. So Vermillion's in the market now and released not too long ago, and then Spirit Animal's going through the brew house, because the reality is that most of those beers are somewhere in that 26 to like 30-day time frame as far as the beers are concerned in the tank. So we're usually another month or so ahead. But yeah, Vermillion's out right now. It's been going pretty well. So
excellent. All right. Well, now it's time to get to the meat of this. It's hard to believe we've been chatting for almost an hour now, well, for about an hour. And now we're just getting to the meat of the show, which is the Brew Buzz section, which the Brew Buzz is devoted to discussing various beer-related topics. This week we are going to learn all about Mother Earth Brew Company, brewing beer out of Vista, California, and Nampa, Idaho, with Kris Baker right here. You've been great, Kris. We really appreciate your time. But now we want to find out about Mother Earth. So I'm gonna start off. I'm gonna premise this section with saying that. To be honest, when I first heard Mother Earth was going to build a production brewery in Nampa, Idaho, I was surprised. Why build in Idaho when California craft beer scene is pretty proud of their breweries? I will admit, once I started drinking the beers that you're putting out, I completely removed all questioning of why from my mind and was just happy to have you guys in our state providing access to delicious beer. So it was a bit of a shock when we first heard the news. So we're going to just kind of start with this question right off the bat as an icebreaker. So Um, how did Mother Earth end up, building a production brewery in Nampa, Idaho? Why pick Idaho as the location?
Yeah, I think for most people, especially and when we did it in 2016, that
Hmm.
was definitely like the first question. Everybody's like, "Why are you in Nampa, Idaho? You're in San Diego. You're in
Hmm.
the capital of craft, as it's called, and all that stuff." And the reality was that, and I have this conversation a lot, but like in we are, we are from San Diego. We are a part of the San Diego craft brewing scene. I still have a ton of friends that brew down there. I talk to them almost every day. I mean, it's still a big part of who we are. But while we were down there, so brewery launched in 2010. I jumped on in 2013. In 2013, we signed our first distribution contract with Stone Brewing Company, actually, so where I came from,
Hmm.
and Stone Distribution Company, so SDC, and Cali Creamin had just finally started to find its feet in the market. Well, that didn't take long and kind of took off. And so we moved up here in 16. So between 2013 and 2016, the breweries went from about 3,500 barrels when I joined to right probably around like 15, 16,000
Hmm.
in a really short amount of time. And so we were in this little facility in Vista. It's just like a business park. So we had one suite. And then, before we knew it, we had two suites, and one of them
Hmm.
had a tasting room in it and our grain room. And then before we knew, we had three suites. And then by the time we left, I think we had 12.
Oh my
And so we
goodness.
had kind of, hold on, sorry, my dog is trying to go outside and I've got his door closed.
No problem.
We kind of got to this point where we were just bursting at the seams. And I mean,
Hmm.
brewing in this place meant like every day, take everything out of the suites and put it in the alleyway,
Oh
brew on all
wow.
the equipment, do all the stuff, and I put it all back in and then do it all again the next day. So, and the only way that would have worked was in San Diego for sure, because weather would have been a huge problem
Hmm.
anywhere else. But anyway, we went through all that, and then we went to look to and expand. And during that time, San Diego was in the worst drought they had ever seen at that time. It had been, I was actually down there, I'd been down there for 5 years. And the reality was that in my memory, like I was like, I can remember on like one hand how many times it's rained since I've lived here.
Hmm.
And so they were in this huge drought. Water was becoming a problem. We were starting to hear all of this grumblings about like water rates going way up and stuff like that. And we had that in the back of our mind, but we kept looking. Like I think my funniest place that we looked at is we looked at this awesome warehouse. It was huge, and they were building those cell phone towers that like look like trees or
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
And there was this really cool spot, and we like fell in love with it. And we are like, dude, this is so cool. We can make this work. Went through it all. We get all through all the negotiations, and we're getting down to kind of the nitty gritty. And it's like, okay, well, you can only put like 1,200 gallons of water down the drain every day. And we're
Yeah.
like, okay, so we can't do that. And this is probably like sixth or seventh building that we had looked at. And at this point, me and Dan are just like, man, like we just can't find the right spot. And so at that point, there's a lot of conversations about water. There was a lot of conversations about transporting raw materials and running a business, hops and malts
Hmm.
and all that stuff. And Dan had spent a good amount of time up here when he was working for Sprint, actually for Boost Mobile. And he had opened a bunch of stores. He's like, I really like this area. It's close to the mountains. Like, and we kind of started doing research on it. We were like, okay, this is like actually a reasonable idea. And so, being Dan, just like, well, I'm going to go up there. So I jumped on a plane, flew up here. And then I think 2 weeks after that, flew me up here to look at the facility that we're in. And like, I
Hmm.
will say this, like the big thing with Mother Earth and a lot of the success, the reason that I'm still like with this company is because we're fiscally like pretty responsible. Like we don't
Okay.
do anything outside of our means. We don't take loans unless we absolutely have to. We're not trying to
Nice.
take over the world tomorrow.
Hmm.
We just want to grow. And so we went up and I looked at this, this area that had been literally been abandoned for like years. And we were going through these weird little buildings and looking at all the stuff. But the reality was that it had everything that we needed. And so honestly, before we knew it, or before I knew it, that deal was kind of inked. And so it's a little bit of kismet, which is like
It's a
just
beer
right
name.
place. Yeah, beer and one of our beer names. And right place, right time. And I think that we would have stayed in San Diego to some degree if like the water thing hadn't kind of like pushed us out to some
Yeah.
degree. But and I hate to say that because everybody in Idaho would be mad at me for saying that, but the
I
reality
would
of it,
for sure.
the reality of it was that when we got here, we quickly realized what unfortunately a lot of the country is realizing right now is that like we really landed an awesome spot and in an awesome beer scene and in a place that had been like kind of largely untouched. And so it
Mm-hmm.
just was an interesting place to kind of land in, and start to think. Because I mean, you have to, like I said, we're pretty conservative, but I mean, we're thinking about the business 30 to 50 years from now, not
Yeah.
10 years from now. And so we just thought that, you know, the way that things were going in Southern California and just running the business and the way pricing was and the way real estate was and the way that water was, that it was going to be a bit of a struggle. And, you know, the fact that we ended up in Boise is a little bit because of raw materials and all that stuff, but it was also just a little bit of, you know, dumb luck. I grew up in
Mm-hmm.
Salt Lake City. I lived there from when I was 8 till I was 14. Played soccer up here a bunch when I was a little kid. And I remember Dan walked to my office. He's like, "How do you feel about Boise?" And I was like,
Yeah.
I knew it was a cool city, and I knew it was somewhere that I wanted to be close to the mountains, and I wanted to get back to doing a lot of stuff I did when I was a kid in Salt Lake City or in Utah, and so it just kind of worked out. You know, it's really weird again, and that's like the third story that I've told in this whole thing where I'm like, just kind of worked out that way, and so
Yeah.
we ended up here, and now and now Boise or Idaho is our second biggest market, which means that we're, you know, it's not a hugely populated
Yeah.
state. So we're getting a lot of
Yeah.
sales here. We've really got roots here. And one of the things is when we came in here, we immediately, you know, it's, you know, I'm not shipping brewers up from California and stuff like that. You know, we're jumping into the scene, and, you know, I've got a lot of guys that have brewed for me here that brewed at local breweries, but then came
Mm.
to us and then went to other local breweries. I mean, I've got ex staff at Lost Grove,
Oh,
Payette,
okay.
like all over the place. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's been it's been cool. I mean, it's really just been a nice transition. Like I said, I mean, was there any real day where Deborah was like, "We're going to Boise, Idaho"? Like that's like that just kind of came out. It was just it's, you know, it's a bunch of small decisions that kind of led to a very intelligent decision, in my opinion, to get up here. But it is a little interesting to carry, you know, two very different, you know, geographical locations as potentially kind of your home markets. But at the same time, I feel like we're in the two markets, if I could pick looking at it now, that I'd want to be in, which is like,
Yeah.
I love Southern California beer. I'm an IPA guy. There
Mm.
are great beers being made down there. You can never take that away from that city.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I love being a part of this beer scene, and I love a lot of the stuff being made up here. And I love that there's, to some degree, there's a good amount of variety up here, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of younger, smaller, up and coming breweries and people working hard to be a part of that. And I think it's kind of neat. I mean, it's kind of neat to be a part of two different like looks at the industry. So it's been a good transition. But that's how we ended up with, you know, a small footprint in San Diego and a large footprint in Idaho.
Okay. So let's go into how you got into Mother Earth. You mentioned you've been with Mother Earth for 10 years. You also mentioned you came on, you left Stone Brewing because Mother Earth was ramping up and they needed brewers. And you said you thought a good opportunity to go and do that. And then you ended up at one point, let's just say this. At one point, you ended up becoming the director of brewing operations. So when did that occur? And what does that role entail? Like, what's your job responsibilities or what's your day to day doing? Like today, you were in there helping them with water, but what do you normally do with your role?
It's kind of all over the place. Yeah. So, I mean, I am probably unique in the pantheon of director of brewing operations. Most of our on paper job description is we're gonna work on raw material procurement and costing. So I work on making
Okay.
sure that when we make a beer, if you let brewers just make a beer however they
Yeah.
want, you will lose money at an incredibly rapid rate. So I'm that balance. And it comes from a brewer perspective. So again, like in a lot of companies, like sales would be like, well, it can't cost this much. And like for me, when we're writing recipes and we're looking at stuff we want to do, it builds a strategy as far as like how I want to expand the brewery and where I want to try to save costs. So we can brew that super beer that Matt wants to make,
Yeah.
but also make money in it. So I do a lot of that. I mean, I work with our wastewater side. So I mean, really, I guess what I should say is really in my mind, I have some management responsibilities in San Diego as far as the brewery
Oh,
is concerned.
okay.
I run all of, or I have the maintenance side up here. I have the lab side up here, and then I've got
Oh,
brewing and packaging as kind of the pieces that are like I've got a manager in each one of those parts of it. And so I manage them. And really, like I said, I'm kind of the liaison between business and beer. It's an interesting job. I always tell Matt, I'm like, I think Matt actually has the job that I want. But I've kind of fallen into this, and I have a unique background. My biochemistry degree offers me a
Mhm.
lot of like interesting background. Like I have a decent amount of knowledge and experience in the wastewater world, so I was able to pick that up here and in San Diego to a smaller extent. So I help with that. But also getting the lab off the ground was a lot of the reason
Mhm.
Dan brought me in.
Okay.
But then at the same time, I have the unique experience of like I was a brewer when I joined, so I can run the San Diego brewery with my eyes closed because I did it for years.
Mhm.
And then when I came up here, I was one of the main brewers to get the Mueller and all of our equipment here off the ground. So I know, I like to say that I mean, I know it as well as any of my guys. Like, give me like if they've been doing something every day, they're probably faster than I am, or
Mhm.
my, whatever. But I was laughing. I'm like, give me a couple of days and I will run circles around everybody because I've been doing it for so long. And so I like it because it's a unique perspective. Like I can help in, SOP development, protocol, like that kind of thing. But at the same
Mhm.
time, I can also step back and, make sure that we're operating the way that we're supposed to be and we're checking all the boxes that we have to check to operate. As breweries are getting more well known and have been around for longer, there's more hoops, especially on the wastewater side. We're about to see that be a big kick in Boise. And permitting in California is a big one.
Mhm.
Permitting here is not near as aggressive as it is down there, but it's just you always have these kind of ancillary projects that kind of pull you in. And you talk about like expanding a lab, like we got a few years ago, we really got our micro program off the ground and have a pretty robust site on that. We run a lot of analytics on our beer to make sure that
Hmm.
we're consistent. We've been through several iterations of lab managers. We've had some really good ones, and they've all helped us really build it. And then the maintenance side. I mean, I didn't have a real maintenance person until probably 2018.
Mm.
Um, and so, I mean, there's what is that, 5 years of time in there that I was like the maintenance guy. So if the boiler
Yeah.
went down in
Yeah.
San Diego,
You
I'm the
got to
guy who
figure
got
it out.
called. And so I kind of been all over and kind of done a lot of different stuff. I'm still involved in our hop selections and all the fun stuff, like the actual sensorial, like artistic aspect of it, but kind of cover all the bases. And I work with sales a lot more to make sure that we're
Mm.
hitting timelines, distributors, timeline, like getting beers out and the right, making it to trucks and making sure stuff gets
Mhm.
out the way that it's supposed to. So it's more a little bit of everything, honestly.
Okay. Excellent.
So you guys just brought home a medal from GABF, right? Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you guys took the silver in the international light lager category. So Kris, can you tell us a little bit about the Wakumi Japanese lager?
Yeah, so it's actually a funny story. So we decided as a company to make a Pilsner as a next core offering. So
Okay.
we are planning on releasing a Pilsner in 2025 that will be in a core offering and be on the shelves around the year, around all year long. Anyway, while we were doing that, while we were in the kind of development side of it, me and Matt decided that we wanted to kind of counterpoint the Pilsner conversation a little bit. So like Pilsners had already been kind of in the market. We're a little late to the game on that front. Not too bad, but you're starting to see them kind of be everywhere. And so we picked what we thought was an up and coming lager style, which
Mhm.
was a Japanese lager. A few had been
Mm.
out. Harlan's one of the ones I'll point out the most. Like Harlan's, like that's a big brand for them. They sell a lot of it in San Diego. They also sell it here in Boise
Yeah.
through Scout.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we decided to go that route. And really, what happened was we started making them, and then Matt fell in love with the style. And I'm not going to take anything from him. This is his brainchild as far as the recipe and stuff goes. And he built it out. And I mean, it's a heavily rice adjuncted beer,
Mhm.
which can be really interesting to brew with for a lot of different reasons. Rice can get really gooey and hard
Mhm.
to like separate, and so he's done a lot on that front. And then also just adding any kind of, like if you make a Mexican lager, it's supposed to be this way. If you
Mhm.
make a Pilsner, it's supposed to be this way. And if you make a Japanese lager, it's like, well, where does that live in the pantheon of all of these? And so it
Mhm.
has a little bit more of a unique profile to it, but he's done a really good job. I think this is his fourth iteration
Oh,
on
okay.
our small batch system. And honestly, we knew when it went to comp, I was like, this is our best chance at winning the medal. And we knew.
Mm.
And so when we pulled it home, it was funny because he was out of town. He's like, well, we called it. But it's a really nice beer. I mean, even like our Mexican lager Tierra is a lot like got a little bit. It's got a bunch of Vienna malt in it, so it's a little
Hmm.
maltier. This is lean towards Pilsner, but bitterness turned way down. Beer's a lot more neutral, but with a really nice, like nuancy, like hop note, where you're looking at more of like a little grassier, a little like tea like notes. You try to push your brain that way without making it overt, because the reality of it is like Asahi and Sapporo and Kirin and all those styles are pretty close to American macro brand
Yeah.
lagers,
Yeah.
except a lot of their fermentation profiles are a lot like sharper and cleaner and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So we kind of tried to walk that line. I mean, to the point where Japanese lager doesn't really have its own category, which is why you end up in international. And like, if
Yeah.
I put Tierra in, Tierra would have been in the same category in a lot of
Hmm.
ways. So it's an interesting table to judge at. But yeah, it's a super cool beer, super great, like just a crusher through and through. Like that's we go down there and that like our packaging manager like thinks that Tierra is just way too hoppy for him.
Oh,
They're not a hop guy at all, which is, and it's not. It's very mellow. But then we made the Japanese lager, and he's like, "I love this beer," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And so I drank. We had two of them in cans, and I tried one side by side, and I was like, "You're right, Tierra. Compared to this, Tierra is incredibly hot." And so it's been kind of a fun like playoff. And like I said, I think the world is shifting towards some of these lighter offerings from the craft sector. And as craft beer kind of flattens out a little bit, a lot of us have more capacity to make these beers. And so you're starting to see some fun innovations happening outside. And so it's been fun. And like I said, Matt. So Matt Watterson's my head brewer, and Matt Ortiz is my R&D brewer.
oh,
Like absolutely just knocked it out of the park. Did everything right, beginning to end, and made a really nice beer. And got us some hardware, which is always a lot of fun.
perfect. That's awesome. I was really happy when I saw your name, and you're the only Idaho brewery
Only,
that won
yeah.
a medal this year because we didn't win any last year. And then I was worried, and when I saw that when I put Idaho in there and I saw it was you, I was like, yes, we're having Kris on, and he can
Yeah,
talk about
Yeah.
his medal.
That's perfect.
it's cool. It's funny that you say that, because like the reality is, like, again, like Lance and Boise Brewing is
Hmm.
so highly decorated. I mean, this guy
Yeah.
is a perennial gold medal winner in the American Stout category every year. Well, I like what sucks is that stouts again have kind of trended down.
Yeah.
So there's not as many entries. And so a lot of the big comps have collapsed his category
Oh,
to include things like black IPAs.
yeah.
So if you're
Yeah.
judging and you've got a black IPA and an American stout, those are not the same
Yeah. They're all
thing.
this. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
judging gets
Exactly.
really wonky, and I think that that's been a little bit of has hurt him a little bit on that side, because I mean, this, like I said, he's won it for a bunch of different dark beers, but he is Mr. Gold Medal when it comes to GABF. I actually don't have a GABF Gold Medal yet. We're getting closer, but
Yet.
we
I
haven't
Okay.
like how
gotten
you
there
said that.
yet. Oh, we'll get there. But
Yeah.
it was cool to get that medal. Idaho usually represents pretty good, honestly. There's always a few,
Yeah.
seeing Matt Street a few years ago win it for the
Yeah.
Brown, I thought was super cool.
Yeah.
Sockeyes definitely won a couple since I've
Oh
been up
yeah.
here, and all
Yeah.
kinds of different categories. So it's definitely cool to win it. It's always a nice, it's like you just know you're kind of doing things correctly. It's like,
Hmm.
yes, we,
Hmm.
especially if you like expect it, if you're kind of like, we got a really good shot here, and you're like, okay, we're at least, or like, we're all speaking the same language, which is
Yeah.
nice. I mean, you
Yeah.
don't get a lot out of winning a GABF medal, in the sense that, like, most people in the tap room don't know what GABF is,
Yeah.
or they're picking beers up off the shelf. But at the same time, it's just one of the only industries in the world, I swear, that you actually get to go toe to toe with all of your competitors, and it's like
Yeah.
such a cool community and such a neat thing to be a part of.
It
So,
it really amazes me that you said that, Kris, where you're like the people you have come in your door might not even have a clue what the Great American Beer Fest is. And it probably doesn't draw you any extra business, or people aren't like, oh my gosh, these guys brought home a medal, we got to go there. Funny enough, we see the same thing too. We win local awards all the time, and it's, to me, I think it's more for us and more for you guys to be like, let me hang this medal on the wall, or us hanging
Yep.
plaques on the wall going, listen, we won the best. Like, we're the best in Tampa, or we're the best in Idaho. And it's just really cool to see that. And whether it brings you guys more business or not, I think it's a big morale booster for everybody too.
It is.
yeah.
Oh, hey, my TV just went off.
Do, do you do you think that now you said this Japanese lager is going to be a normal release or not?
It's actually like it's a perfect like R&D kind of segue in the sense that it's like sorry, I'm like changing colors here as my TV's going off and on. Apparently it has a timer on it. Uh, it's it's in the queue of beers. So we got that 5 barrel system like a few years ago. And we've just been kind of trying to pump out recipes, and we're trying to get like we've kind of been backwards. So in the past it's like we want to make this beer, you have this idea in your head, and you're gonna like brew that beer and then release it to the market. And we're trying to go the other way, where it's like, okay, we have all these beers. I think this beer is something that we're really doing well with, and I think that the market has legs for it. So we're kind of trying to spin the like,
Okay.
kind of reverse the way that we've been engineering beers in the past. And so yeah, could it be? Absolutely. Is it something you're going to see as a regular in our tap room? Absolutely. It sells really well. It's a style that we all enjoy. So I think that there's a good possibility. I mean, there's always grumblings. I've heard potentially late 25, maybe early 26. But it just depends. It just kind of depends
Okay.
on how things go. Like I said, we're releasing 2 new beers at the beginning of this next year,
Yeah.
and just trying to continue to move with the industry and be smart. So yeah, I mean, I love it. And there are actually a ton of spin-offs of that. Matt did one, I think like 2 releases ago. He did one where he made like a white tea like extract, and then kind of like added that in just to like add a little bit of flair to it, and that was super cool. So it could. I don't know. I know we'll keep making them, but at the same time, I don't know. I'd be curious to see where it goes and where the drinkers go. It just
Yeah.
depends on
Yeah.
where the buyers end up moving to.
That's a good point. Good point. Hey, I'm going to combine two questions into one so we can, 'cause they kind of go together here. I know I know Dan Love is the owner, so, but you've been working with him for quite a while, so I think you might be able to provide an answer for this. So basically, how did Mother Earth Brewing get started? What was the motivation for starting the brewery? And in conjunction with that, so how it got started, what's what's the story behind the naming? And what is, you mentioned earlier that there is another Mother Earth brewing over on the East Coast somewhere, and what kind of conflict does that cause? Because I'm sure that if people, I list every show, if I mention beers that we talk about for new and noteworthy, whatever, I put a link to the website. So I have the link in my show notes to the right Mother Earth Brew Co. website. But if people listening don't go to the link and they type it in Mother Earth Brewing, they're going to be directed to the wrong website. So what kind of problems does that cause for you guys? So it's a multifaceted question. You can kind of wrap it up.
Sure. Yeah, it's been interesting for sure. And actually, on that front, like we were still in Vista, there was a Slater's 50/50, which is like a burger place that opened, and they were painting all of the brewery logos like on the wall. And the artist like wasn't really a beer guy, and so we went in there and they painted the other mother's logo on there, which was pretty funny. And I kind of giggled. I was like, that's not ours. But so yes, it comes up all the time. I like to think that for the most part, we've kind of got most of that figured out. Yeah, I kind of worked this one back to the beginning, but like where we live right now is essentially the two breweries started. I think Mother Earth Brewing in North Carolina is actually older, but they kind of started around the same time. But Dan trademarked the name when he got going, just because that's what Dan does or what he did, and so he trademarked it. And they didn't really find out, if I remember right, until like a major competition that they were both at.
Oh, okay.
And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, and so then the conversation started, and there were some conversations about selling the name to them because they had been around longer, but we owned it. And then they didn't want to go through all that, and so we were like, well, you're in North Carolina and we're in San Diego, so like, how much are we really going to overlap? And then as we grew, there were more conversations about selling the name. But at some point we got to a size where like we just can't move on it anymore. So the way it really works is that we don't, and we wouldn't, but we could cease and desist them in any state in the country except for North Carolina.
Yeah.
So they're grandfathered into their state. We can't get distribution in that state because of they basically own that one because they started there. And that's fine. Like I said, I don't think we necessarily have the ambition to like go over there and become like I'd love to see us grow that way over time, but it's not like a huge push that we're going to see going there. So it really doesn't come up that much. whatever voodoo how the internet works. Comron has done a really good job making sure that people in the right
Get to
places
the
go
right
to
place.
ours,
Yeah.
so we run into less of the wrong logos. But anyway,
Yeah.
so it still exists. It's kind of, like I said, it's kind of a funny story, but it just is what it is. Like I said, in the world of names and all that kind of stuff happens. But what happened was, so Dan worked for Sprint, and so did his stepson Kamran. They're the two majority owners, and they're homebrewed in the garage, kind of had fun with it, and just had really good timing. So I mean, by the time they're kind of honing their skills and stuff in like the 2008 to 2010, the market's the housing market blew up and a lot of things changed. And Dan decided that he, wanted to use his retirement to start this business up, and their timing was just absolutely perfect. And so they just kind of going, and actually the smartest thing about Dan and the way they started was, even when they were in their garage, and once the idea of being a brewery kind of came along, they went and hired Lee Chase, who was one of the original head brewers for Stone Brewing Company. At that time, he had moved on, but he was consulting to help them get better. And so he came in, helped them in their garage, brewed with them, and got them kind of going in the right direction. And then they opened up in 2010. They opened like right as I was kind of joining Stone. And so a lot of us, when they opened, would go down there and drink their beers. And I mean, they're making some cool beers, and it just kind of word of mouth, and they just kind of blew up. And like I said, it just really good timing on that front. As far as the naming and stuff goes, it's actually funny to just go back to the naming conversation in general. They were sitting around kind of, kicking around ideas, and Dan could give you way more insight into like all the different things they were kind of thinking of. And the reality is like Dan and his brother are super into like, kind of classic rock. And I mean, like album covers and like all these like old signs and all this old stuff. And somehow, as they were kind of putting it together, like they had kind of I mean, it's just kind of this like artwork early on was more towards the like, I don't say Grateful Dead, but like some of that like kind of cartoony, like earthy kind of like shroomy, like psilocybin, like idea, like artwork. And it just kind of all came together for them. And so it just became Mother Earth, and the beers from the earth. And then this "Love Your Mother" tagline kicked in. And like I said, Dan and Kamran are the majority owners, but John, Dan's brother, is also an owner. And he was always a big part of helping them kind of build out and stuff like that. And so, they were really close to their mom, and that was like just became kind of part of the brewery. And so this all just like literally again just kind of came together and became Mother Earth Brew Co., where the one back east is Mother Earth Brewing. And it took off, you know what I mean? And then it's really been funny because the best part about it is watching the iterations of our artwork over the 10 or 11 years I've been with the company, and just like watching us kind of move from one thing to the next, and watching us kind of grow up as a brand, but also get into different things, and watching that show through. It's been really interesting. But yeah, it's kind of funny. It's not any crazy story or anything like that. It really, the naming convention just kind of was a fit, and they started kind of riffing on what that meant. And then, like I said, the "Love Your Mother" thing popped up, and it was just like, boom, trademark happened, and off they went.
Nice. All right, Kris, I'm going to let you answer the next couple of questions. My bladder is already getting full, so you guys.
I got you, Denny. I got you, man.
Thanks for covering me.
I got you. Well, Kris, so I know you guys have been seeing it here, just like we see it in Florida too. The breweries are closing. We were talking about Cascade earlier. New ones opening up. The customers they look for, they look for the new, the bigger, the better. Or a lot of people seem to have a focus too of like, hey, let's shop local, because you mentioned something like that earlier too, in the earlier questions. Are you guys seeing a dip in your customer visits, and what kind of things are you guys doing to just keep butts and seats, keep glasses full, and keep
selling
people
beer
in there? Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's a tough industry right now. And there's a lot of literature out there about the state of craft and the whole story. And I mean, a lot of it would show that COVID really put a dent in the craft beer industry. And the macro brands, the big guys, have shown pretty much a full recovery after COVID, and
Yeah.
craft never really got there. And I think a lot of that speaks to just the dynamics of drinkers in the United States, and just our social scenes have changed so much. I mean, it used to be in San Diego, you get into a weird warehouse area and throw up a roll door and put out a sign that says I have a
Yeah.
bar, and people flock there and you sell tons of beer. It's kind of changed. And so, and in the world now, inflation's different and economics are different. And so higher price premium products are different and harder to get, are harder to sell. And so, yes, we see declines. This year will be the first one. I will actually admit this will be the first one I've seen since I've been with the company. It's not very much. It's a little bit. And you offset it with different things. Our tap room in Boise has done really, really well. This year we launched a tap room in Vista, because we lost our original one during COVID. And so we've been able to kind of replace some of that with kind of going back to our roots, in the sense of kind of getting back to the tap rooms and serving beer over the bar, which has been a positive. But yeah, distribution in general is a little bit tougher, and you're seeing all this consolidation. There's a lot of brand confusion with who owns who and what. That's the problem with the craft breweries selling and stuff like that has been more that, I think, than anything else, is eventually the story becomes too hard to follow, and then all of a sudden your consumers don't necessarily trust what's coming out of the can and who you are and what who's making it. So that's changed a little bit. But yeah, so I mean, yes, people buy local because they can go and see my tap room, and they might run into Dan or Matt or me or whoever, and have an interaction with the business in its own right. And I think that's a big part of it. But yeah, it's going to get a little interesting going forward. Seltzers, coming out of COVID, then seltzers kind of put a big dent in craft beer, and hurt a lot of breweries that were kind of living in that world. Because again, you saw this meteoric rise into a kind of meteoric fall as the large brands came out of the woodworks, and White Claw and Truly took over. And even to that fact, what Truly's done to Boston Beer Co. and how that's worked for them. But anyway, it's different. It's always been different. We know that craft beer is cyclical. We knew when we got into it that it couldn't stay on the trajectory that it was on forever. Just not everybody can succeed in that world. And the reality is that the pantheon of craft beer, there's a lot of good beer and there's also a lot of bad beer. So at some point, the ones that aren't making good beer are going to go. I think when I start, as an example, I think I started in San Diego. There were 12 breweries. When I started working for Stone. By the time I moved 6 years later, there were 150. And the reality was that there were some at the beginning of it. There were some breweries that opened up at the beginning that weren't very good, but they held on for 3, 4, 5 years just by the fact that people wanted to be a part of the industry and want to be a part of it growing and all that kind of stuff. And so I don't know, it's just going to change like anything else. We'll figure out how to move on and adjust to the next I don't want to say fad, but the next thing that kind of comes out and grabs people by storm. And for us as a brewery, we try to kind of stick to our guns. I don't want to leverage myself out and jump into anything that I don't understand. You know what I mean? Again, jumping out into seltzers. I mean, we were late to the Hazy game because we were these aren't gonna last. And then before you know it, they're half of IPA sales. Okay, we got to kind of go there. And I think that's probably the most important part of my brewing staff at this point is that, and we have these conversations a lot internally. So, I mean, I've been in the industry for 15 years. Matt's been in for, God, I don't know, 10 or 12. And Dan's been doing this since 2010 as well. And I mean, all of us have been around for a while. And the reality is that I lean on a lot of my guys that are, out kind of living that life that I lived between, 22 and 32, where you're just checking out every cool brewery and you're going to every cool spot and you're trying all these cool beers. So I feel like those guys really have a good pulse on what's going on. So we pull a lot from that. You look at it and be like, what are you guys drinking? What are you into? The guys are sharing beers at the brewery all the time. And so I get to see a lot of it. I swear to God, every brewer at my brewery has a Tavor account. Because the stuff that comes through, I'm just where did you get? How are you guys drinking? One of our sponsors. Yeah, I mean, how are you drinking an other half IPA? And they're what? And I'm yeah, okay. I mean, I know who they are, obviously, and they're a fantastic brewery, but they're also not anywhere near here.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. We're just trying to be smart business people, not over leverage ourselves, build for the long term. Realize that growth is it's awesome. It's not always expected. So you just got to play your business right. You just
Yeah.
kind of playing that game more than anything. And I think that's where we see a lot of the bigger brands struggle. You know, you spend a lot of money real fast in the brewing industry, it can hurt you
Yeah.
because it's
Mhm.
something like COVID just cuts your legs out from under you. And also, like, it's just not a high margin business. A lot of money
Yeah.
gets like changes hands in the
Yeah.
brewing of it,
But
but at the end of the
you
day, like, not a ton of it gets to stay there. So you got to just you do it because you love it, and you do it because it like I said, it's what makes you happy. And being able to have these conversations with you guys or Denny, sit around the table at the tap house and talk to anybody about beer,
yeah.
it's
He's
kind of
good
an
at that.
important part of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, and you said something at the beginning of that question too, or it was just, hey, we got to get back to our grassroots where we're serving beer over the bar. Right.
Mm.
And I think regardless of the business, I think getting back into the grassroots, getting back into the fundamentals. I've just been talking to a lot of dog trainers about this, but the fundamentals of, hey, what made you guys successful in the beginning? And what did you get away from?
Mm.
And then you have to realize, oh yeah, we were doing X, Y, and Z 5, 6 years ago, and we were, hugely successful. And then whatever perfect storm happened, COVID probably for a lot of it, made made things go a little haywire. So grassroots, getting back to the fundamentals, we've seen, regardless of the industry, has been
Mm.
a big focus for a lot of folks.
Yeah, and it's funny because like it's like kind of scary in a lot of ways, like to do. I mean, like when you talk about opening a tap room, and it took us a while to open one here in Boise, but it's like it's a big spend to get it going. But at the end of
Yeah.
the day, it's really where I mean, it's how people know who you are. It's how
Mhm.
you like. We got pushed, like I said, we got pushed away as a California brewery a lot more because we didn't have that. We had a small tasting room in Nampa, but nothing in really in Boise, and so like people
Mm.
were like, like
Mhm.
it's just like they didn't even know we were in the state. And so once you get that interaction, that's how you connect with your
Yeah.
your customers. And the reality is, like I said, I mean, local continues to drive. We all want to expand outside of our markets, but it's also a lot harder game to live in. I mean, it's
Yeah.
hard to keep your beer good when you're shipping it, 1,000 miles or whatever the case may be. So you really kind of have to go with some of that. And and like me and Dan talk about this all the time. Like we're lucky. Cali Creamin hit and took off, and Cali
Mm.
Creamin is in its own world. Like there's
Mhm.
not really any competition in that style. And you're like, Dan will ask me sometimes, or somebody asks me like, "What's the next one going to be?" And you're like, "You have no idea. I don't know what's going to happen. Depends on if we can catch the timing of where the beer trends are going and put the next one out in front of people and have
Mhm.
it kind of go. But at the same time, like I said, you just kind of stick to your guns, do what you do best, do what you love, and hope for the
Yeah.
best."
The good ones will hit. The good ones will hit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, like even the Japanese lager is a good example. It's a beer we ended up with this huge backstory on making and just really like got into it and kind of felt pride in figuring out what this is. And then by the time you know it, you send it out and you're like, oh, we got a medal for it. And you're just like, that makes sense. Like there was at no point in that process where we like, yeah, we'll make a Japanese lager. Yeah, it'll be okay. Like it was
Yeah.
like, oh, this is cool and this
It
is
was
cool
Yeah.
and let's try
passion.
this.
Well, it's
Yeah.
beer that, but I feel like you guys that work in beer all the time, you guys lean so heavily on your beer flavored beers,
Mm.
right? Or you're talking about earlier in the show, just like, I just want a 3.9, 4.2 something where I can just have a couple and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's totally, absolutely. And I mean, that's, yeah, when you live in the beer world, it's, a lot of the guys, and I laugh about this too, because now I'm more of an office goer, as a carpet walker, as we call them. You kind of have to change your beer consuming changes. Like, yeah, if
Yeah.
I'm a brewer getting 15 to 20,000 steps a day on the floor, climbing
Yeah.
40 flights of stairs
You
up
can
and down the
drink
brew deck,
more.
like I can drink IPAs all day, but now I can't do that as much. So I need to be a little bit more careful, or I won't
I hear
make it
you.
very far in this industry.
Hmm.
I hear
Multiple
you.
types of retirement. I want to be able to enjoy it, and you
Yeah.
know, you just have to be kind of. It's an interesting industry that way. But yes, I have gotten to where I like the daily drivers to some degree, where they're not quite so heavy hitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that I think would you say you do you have like three core beers or flagship beers? If I were to name them, it would be you already mentioned Cali Cream and Vanilla or Cali Creamin Vanilla Cream Ale, right?
Mhm.
Is that a core beer?
Yeah,
Of
that's
yours?
the
Yeah.
number one core brand. Yep.
That's number one. Then what would be number two? Is that Buku IPA? Or
So
would it be Sierra Madre?
it moves between three. It's either
Oh.
the orange version of Cali
Oh,
sometimes,
Really?
or yeah, crazy enough, that one actually jumped to number two pretty fast.
okay. Okay.
But Buku's right there with it, and then Tierra's right there with it. So those three, like, it just depends. Like they
Okay.
actually, like, I think this year, I don't know. I think this year it's either going to be Buku or Tierra. If I had to guess, it's probably going to be Buku that ends up being our number two in 2024. So they all live kind of in the same boat. And then Project X isn't too far behind that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and then down
yeah.
the list.
So what in volume wise, do you have an estimate? Not to be perfect, but an estimate of what Cali Creamin does compared to Buku and whatever the second one is? Is it how many cases or whatever you're going to go? How do you actually? How do you
Measure it.
measure
Barrels.
your? I mean, it's barrels, but is it also okay? So it's barrels, and the barrels just equal. You make this amount of barrels, and this amount sell, but there's not selling in kegs. They're selling in cans, and you're assuming all of it is being. I mean, you're selling it all, so I guess it all makes sense. You sell all your product, then it's.
We all speak different languages, which is really funny. So the brewers will say barrels.
Yeah.
The sales side and the distribution will say case equivalents.
Case
so everything's
equivalent,
taken to a 24 pack
24.
of 12-ounce cans.
Because that number's bigger.
Yeah.
Sales
It
look
is.
great.
And if you sell a keg, you're like, yes, I just sold a bunch of case equivalents. But yeah, no, we do it in barrels. And so we're like, and that's pretty normal for like the way the Brewers Association and that kind of like ranks everybody. So we're like right around 30,000 barrels. We're a little bit less than that. But we Cali represents usually around 40% of that.
Okay.
So Cali is a big part of it. And I think, I want to say last time I looked, like the Tierra, Creamsicle, Buku, each make up about 12.
Okay.
And then the rest is kind of into what's left there. So that'd give you 30, so that's like 76. So the other 25-ish% is kind of the rest of our brands.
Okay.
And that includes the peach version and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's Cali's a big part of it. And so the Cali family, which would be Cali Creamin, Creamsicle, and the peach version, makes up roughly like close to 60%. In total volume. So it's the majority of what we make. So yeah.
Okay, so it's interesting. Then you would consider yourself a cream ale brewery.
Yep.
Which nobody ever expected to be successful just making cream ale, but you guys obviously are successful in making a lot of cream ale.
Totally. No, and like I said, it's probably the most interesting thing about Mother Earth at the end of the day is that there are really there's pretty much no other vanilla cream ales that are like in direct competition in the market. Mm-hmm. As far as cream ales go, which the style of cream ale is an interesting conversation in its own right. Because a cream ale is a craft brewer's version of, it's supposed to be like a lager, but craft brewers couldn't make lagers because we didn't have space or time or whatever.
Yeah, the time.
And so we made cream ales. Mm-hmm. The consumer doesn't know what the hell that means. So if you like go to a consumer and you're like, I got you a cream ale, and it tastes like a lager, they're like, it's not creamy. And this is literally where it came from. And so Dan makes a cream ale because he thinks it's cool. Yeah, and then it doesn't sell. And then he decides to put vanilla in it, actually for, I think, his wife, Erin. And then all of a sudden, like, somebody's like, finally, a cream ale that's creamy. And boom, it takes off. I mean, that's it. And then even beyond that, then we went to the nitro version of it. And it just adds to the creaminess. And so now that's
the nitro works. Yeah, the nitro works. I actually, I did a video, I think, of when you guys first released the nitro cans, the 16 ounce, and I read the instructions and I did a video and I popped it and I dumped it, and it cascaded. It went right up and I had a 20-ounce glass. It went right up to it, and then you saw all the cascading, and I'm like, wow, it looks beautiful. And then I drank it. I'm like, wow, this actually is. It's pretty good. You know?
Yeah, it works. It's weird. It does work well with the style. And that one is even more funny because I remember we were thinking about doing nitro draft of it. We were like, the sales team's like, there's not that many like nitro handles. Like, why would this take off? Like, I mean, if you figure every bar maybe 80% of the bars have one tap. But the reality was that it's
Yeah.
just it's kind of a deprived like handle, because really, if you were going to buy nitro beers or you were going to sell nitro beers, you really only had one big option, which was Guinness.
Yeah,
And
Guinness.
so,
Yeah.
and it's not for everybody. And so it just, yeah, an interesting spin-off of it. But yeah, I think like the other big, well-known cream ale in this country is Genesee, and they're in New York, I
Yeah.
believe.
And we don't get them here. I actually, so Genesee always got like a bad rep early on because it was just like the college beer. But you know what? When I was on the East Coast, I actually like Genesee. They make some good beer,
Yep.
but everyone gives them crap because it's like it used to be known as cheap college beer. But I think if you try the beers that they're putting out now, they're actually making some really solid beer. But I mean, I don't get it very often. Only when I'm over in New York area is typically when I get it. But yeah, I like Genesee.
It used to show up in San Diego randomly,
Oh,
like
really?
certain like hole in the wall like craft beer bars, and it was always
Oh,
kind of
wow.
funny because it was like, I'm like, did this get bought because they're like, I want to buy another cream ale? I'm like, you went all the way across the country to get one. But anyway, and I have had it, and actually, it is a nice beer. It
Yeah.
is very different than Cali cream is. And like the
Yeah.
other
Oh,
funny thing
yeah.
about
Yeah.
Cali for a cream ale is way too dark. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
stylistically, it's
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
cream ale.
Yeah.
And so it's really just an interesting, like, I mean, I hate to say perversion of the style, but the reality of it is that, again, I'm not going to fault the consumer who's like, the hell is a cream ale? Like, that doesn't even
Yeah.
make sense. And so then, they're not going to go read the Wikipedia page for
Yeah.
where the word cream ale came from and come up with that. So it's kind of a marketing play to some degree, but it works out
Okay.
Oh crap, where'd my questions go? There they are.
really
All right. Yeah, there it is. Okay, wait. Yeah, there it is.
Right.
Thanks, Denny. Denny's over here highlighting it for me. Uh,
well.
so Kris, is there any breweries or beers that inspire you guys in your creative process?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, I would say that in a lot of
Name
cases.
six. No.
Oh, that's a challenging number. I like it. Totally. I mean, you know, I always laugh because it's you as a brewer, you become kind of a novelty when you go out with like your family to some degree. Because like I'm just the scapegoat because my family wants to go out and drink beer. So if we're gonna go to like my family's going to Orange County, like my whole family's going to Disneyland for Thanksgiving. And so I go out and I'm like, I always laugh because they're like, we got to find all the like cool breweries for us to go to and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm not even initiating this. At this point, you guys just want me,
You can
you
do
just
that
want
on
to say that it was
Facebook.
me that, yeah. But yeah, so there are a lot of breweries that I mean, definitely that have driven us and still do. And like right now, probably our biggest influence are, and I said some of them already, which is like Breakside out of Portland, I
Mhm.
think is doing some absolutely incredible beer, crossing a lot of different styles, and making it and making all really like high quality stuff. Frame's another one.
Mhm.
I almost every time I go see my parents in Portland, I stop at
Oh, yeah.
Frame. Von
I
Ebert's
would
another
too.
one.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Von
Yeah,
Ebert's good.
Von Ebert in Portland is another one I meant to mention earlier. Like they
Mhm.
like their Pilsner and then their volatile substance IPA are like
Mhm.
incredible.
Yeah.
Like a lot, and so it's interesting. Like right now, I'm on kind of a Portland kick.
Mhm.
Denver, like you go to like the beer Stotts,
Mhm.
Prost. I was at Prost, the brewery, like before Beer Stott opened when those guys were at Prost. Back in the day, they'd had like one of the best like American made German Hefeweizens I've ever had.
Mm.
So I mean, it's kind of all over. It just depends on who you find and what you pick up and what's good. But I mean, those are some just to name a few. I mean, obviously Russian River always lives at the top of
Oh,
that list.
yeah.
Vinny and what they do is insane. Right now in Utah, I'm like Templin family is doing some really
Oh,
cool stuff. I think that Max at Roadhouse is doing some neat stuff.
yeah.
I mean, like it, yeah. We're constantly watching those, and when I'm buying, those are the things that I'm kind of looking for to see anytime any of those guys drop a new beer. And that's, I mean, the cool thing about this, and this is something else, I think the craft beer bars have kind of taken a little bit of a hit as far as like not a brewery, but it's just a craft beer bar with a lot of handles. And
Mhm.
that's something like I miss. Like in San Diego, like, and we honestly, Boise, we still have quite a few, but like in San Diego, like you had all these little like awesome neighborhood park like breweries in North Park or
Mhm.
downtown or even up in Vista. You go to it and they'd have 50 taps and they're buying beer from all over the country. And that's where you find all these really neat things and you get all this kind of
Yeah.
inspiration. But I think a lot of it for me and Matt right now is like kind of the IPA and the lager front are just guys that are really either finding really good hops, which is like the hardest part about making good IPAs, or really using their yeast at a high level with like
Yeah.
lager production and stuff like that. There's just not everyone does it well. And when you find somebody who does, it's incredible. And that's, I would even lean on Temple and family for that as well. As like his lager game is just incredible. And his IPAs are good too. Just
Yeah.
a good brewer through and through.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind next time I'm down in the Salt Lake area. I was a big fan of a few years ago when Fisher Brewing opened back up, and they were a brewery back there, like one of the first breweries in the area, and they closed. And then one of the descendants went and reopened the brewery under the Fisher name, and they make some pretty good beers down there as well.
And that's in Salt Lake.
Yeah, Salt Lake City.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I have not had, I need to go, I need to do a little bit more brewery exploring in Salt Lake City. Like I said, I find the stuff that'll travel up, and like we go to NABA, which is like a big beer comp in Eastern Idaho every year.
Yeah.
And that's where I get a lot of the exposure to a lot of what's going on down there. And
Okay.
I mean, even the guys, the Wasatches and the Squatters and all those guys have done some cool stuff. I mean, there's actually a pretty cool beer scene there, and they're starting to kind of think about not making the laws impossible to run a business there
Yeah,
or a
yeah,
brewery
slowly.
anyway. But
Yeah.
and I mean, even like one of our friends that used to brew at Payette here in town, Ian, is running Uinta. And I think he does a really good job there. And they're another really interesting entity. Talk about a brewery that has a black
Interesting.
lager. That's good.
Yeah.
I know. I was going to say Baba. Wait, is it Baba Black Sheep? Baba.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's new. That just popped in my head because you're right. They make a good one. They also have the double. Shoot, now I can't think of. They have another one that's really good too that I was trying to think of that I really enjoy, but the name is escaping me. But I think it was Baba something. Baba
Yeah.
something something like
Yeah,
Yeah,
that.
and
it's
no, you're
something
right.
like
It's like
that.
Baba Black Lager or something like that.
Baba
But
Black Lager.
it's a really good beer, and again, just a neat. I don't know. Like sometimes I forget how big Uinta is, and the reality is that they're pretty good size.
Yeah, they're a large brewery. Well, Kris, we had a lot more questions that we've just marked off because you've done a pretty good job of rounding out all of our questions. We could have talked for hours and hours and hours, but I don't want. We've already kept you 2 hours, but I do want to do this last beer tasting with you before we let you go. Are you
Yeah.
okay with one more beer tasting?
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm good. I'm good.
So
This is the one I've been looking forward to.
yeah,
I don't think
I've been looking forward to all of them. But
Okay, so this is the Ascent West Coast IPA, 7.3% ABV, and you mentioned that you have this experimental beer program that you guys are just testing out, trying to come up with beers that you might want to throw into your rotation, and this is one of those beers. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
so
no, I was going to say
clear.
go ahead and talk about your program that you're doing, and then how these beers get into to being put into a regular rotation.
Well, yeah. So I have actually been barking up the tree of making another West Coast IPA or West Coast style IPA or clear IPA for Mother Earth for a long time. I mean, I love Buku. We are probably one of the only craft. I mean, we've been making Buku since I started with Mother Earth. So I mean, Buku is a 10-year-old recipe. And it was written in very thoughtful recipe. I've done my tweaks on it, but honestly, original Dan recipe. And so we wanted to get into something newer. And we, I've been pushing for years. And so they finally gave us the green light, and it's been something we're developing. And so in the world of developing a new IPA, the focus becomes what hops are you going to use? And so for us, as we're watching the varietals kind of grow and change, Strata became a hop that we identified pretty quickly as something that we wanted to work with. And so we've been messing with it for years and kind of just starting to finally hone in on where we wanted to go with it. And so that became the focal point for this beer. And then on top of that, when you write a recipe for a IPA in today's world, we had to have, there was definitely concern in the brewery that Ascent could cannibalize Buku. So drinkers of Buku, instead of getting new drinkers, you just get same drinkers moving over to a new product. So we decided to work with some of the combinations. We wanted to overlap some of the hops that are in it. So we went with Mosaic. And then on top of that, to add a little bit more flair to it, we added Nelson Sauvin. So we added a Australian or New Zealand hop, mainly on the hot side, and it just like the depth that it adds to the beer.
Yeah.
Also in for like Buku is was designed to be a more middle of the road, more approachable IPA. The bitterness is not high. The beer is not overly dry or overly sweet. It's just kind of down the middle. It's a very nice beer. I love Buku. Again, still one of my daily drivers. But Ascent, we wanted to dry it out a little bit more, and we wanted to create a little bit more bitterness. Not like crazy, but this beer is drier and tipped a little bit more towards the West Coast style. And so that's kind of where it came from. There have been many versions of it on the pilot system. You talked about Team USA being one of them.
Yeah, that Team USA really hit a spot for me. And okay, but this is a conglomeration of them, or which experimental is this? Can you say?
I would say in every experimental you do, well, we're brewers, so none of the recipes are actually ever exactly the same.
Yeah.
We're always kind of tweaking and messing with it. And I mean, even in I Drink This, I mean, you guys are drinking, I believe, the cans I gave you the first iteration of this one. We're still messing with it a little bit, but this is just where it currently lives. Like Team USA there were some other hops in Team USA that we were kind of messing with that we were just curious as to how they would play out in the final recipe. Some of those got dropped, and we kind of honed in on it. Because again, like a core IPA like this, I've got to make it fit it's got to check all the boxes. It's got to be big enough and, make my brewers happy. But at the same time, it's also got to be cost effective and profitable. And it's got to be profitable, not just Idaho, but in all of our markets, which adds in transportation costs and all kinds of fun stuff. So it's kind of a mishmash of all the recipes you've tried. And even in some of those, like, we're not even necessarily trying like recipe specific things. We might be trying like different processes. So different yeast, different fermentation temperatures, stuff like that, to see if we can coax out more or less. So, I mean, we always laugh because they're always like, is this Ascent? I'm like, no. Is this Ascent? Is this Ascent? No. And so we have that conversation a lot until we actually finally like put it in the can. But it's not terribly drifted off from Team USA. The fermentation profile for this is quite a bit different than Team USA, so the flavor profile is different.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so like I said,
you're definitely different than Buku.
Yes.
So you definitely stirred away from the Buku, and it's got a lot of. I mean, when I was smelling it, I was I was getting some grassy notes, and even in the flavor, I get some grassy notes, and in the aroma, I was like picking up some like orange oily or orange like almost orange candy, jelly candy type notes to it as well in the aroma and the flavor.
Sure.
And it's nice because it is dry, but it's not overly, it's not like overly dry, right? It finishes, it has some sweet notes to it, but you don't feel the sweetness, and it's a dry beer, but with a bitterness that you feel the bitterness, but not overly bitter, right? It's like you said, you like to build beers that are kind of balanced and all that, and this was very well balanced in the fact that in moments I feel like I'm getting a little sweetness, but it quickly just blends right into the next flavor, and then finishes dry but not too dry, and bitter but not too bitter. It's like a very well even keeled IPA.
A nice little ride.
Well, and I was gonna say, and I would even say, like, I think the cans I gave you are probably the same one that I have here, which is 9.9. So I mean, we're also outside that 30-day window. So there's a little bit of sweetness in it. I can see it's taken on a little bit of extra oxidation in the current version I'm drinking. But yeah, I mean, the idea behind the beer is that it's like you said, it's dry without being too dry. It's bitter without being too bitter. It's hoppy without being too hoppy.
Yeah.
You're trying to. This is going to be a shelf beer for us in California and Arizona and all of our states. And so try for. I think the most exciting thing about this beer for me is, so like Strata hops, we've used for a while, but when you're using them in kind of a one-off fashion, you're kind of just I don't want to say it like bad way, but you get whatever is available on the market at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, next year, when this beer, like we kind of soft launched it this year to kind of work through everything in the recipe. When we get into it and get it into full distribution, which will happen in like February of next year, the strata that we have, we actually went and selected the strata that we wanted. So we went to Crosby Hops in Burnside, Oregon, and sat down, or Woodburn, sorry, not Burnside.
Woodburn, yeah.
And tried, like, went through a bunch of different lots of strata to pick out the notes that we wanted. And so I feel like for us too, this will just continue to morph and grow. And Buku's been the same thing. I mean, Buku's definitely not the same recipe it was early on. The advantage of hop selection has let that beer grow into a different kind of beer and let us push it in directions. And so I think this will do it. It's just really nice to have a West Coast light colored.
Yeah,
clear.
light colored is right. It's super. It's really nice. Yeah.
So that's, I mean, it's Pilsner. I think our basis is Pilsner and base malt and Dexter Pils, just for a little bit of head formation. So yeah, it's the idea is that it'll be again, just a different version. Again, like I said, I also don't want to make Buku 2.0.
Yeah.
We want to make something that's quite a bit different.
So this is, I would label this into the new West Coast type style, right? Where you're not just focused on big bitter citrus or piney hops. This is an IPA. So, I think I mentioned it when we were together before, is I love IPAs, but I just can't drink IPAs all night long anymore like I could when I was younger, because my gut just doesn't handle it very well. And again, the other thing too is I don't want to have that dry mouth and I feel like I just, sandpapered my inside of my face. But this beer though, even though it is drying, it's not overly drying. It's not overly acidic-y with the hop resinous, where I get that hop gut that, you drink too many big IPAs. This is an IPA that I could enjoy, having more than a few, right? I could have, like, for example, when I go to the Shakespeare Festival or, go see the Shakespeare stuff, I bring my beer, my stuff to sit on the grass. I bring a 6-pack, and I bring usually a 6-pack of a pale ale because I want to finish that pale ale, that 6-pack, before I leave the event. This could be one of those beers that I bring and I finish all of them before I leave that night, because it's not, it's just easy. It's easy drinking. It's enjoyable without having to worry about that. I'm going to have hop gut or indigestion from burping up all the extra hop. It's, I like this. It's a new style West Coast that, brings different flavors and is, I think, easier drinking than the old school. Like I mentioned, Bridgeport IPA being one of my go-to IPAs back in the late 90s and early 2000s. That one, back then, I could drink a bunch of those, but I didn't necessarily feel the greatest the next day after I drank a bunch of those, where this one I might be able to, feel not so bad and do it again next weekend.
Yeah, it's you're right, and it's just a different version of IPAs. And like I said, it's a West Coast, but we're not trying to melt your face off. And me and Matt have this conversation a lot with oh, by the way, this is Sam.
Hey Sam.
He's like, you need to stop talking about beer. You're driving me nuts.
It's time to go outside.
But yeah, you the old school, the bitterness, it builds on you. And so the new school West Coast is a little bit different. And it's really funny. I laugh about this because we went from West Coast to Hazy's, and now you're seeing a little bit of it coming back. And as it comes back, it's different. It's not so now, instead of brewers using a lot of crystal malts and getting an orange color out of your beers, a lot of us are using Pilsner malt and lightening them up. Because that's, we just want to see a little bit lighter profile. And like I said, the bitterness on this beer is there, but you want it to kind of show you that the beer is dry, and you want it to show you that it's a little bit bitter, but you don't want it to necessarily overwhelm it. And I do appreciate the bitterness in that aspect of it as well.
Yeah. No, I like this beer, and when it comes out in February, I will judge the changes, and I'm sure whatever changes you guys make are going to be spot on, because you're going to take all the inputs from the different batches and come up with the best Ascent that you can.
Yeah, and I mean we're also like this is and again this is what happens when my dog is like, what are you doing? He's 11 months old, so he hasn't really figured out
He's a
boundaries yet,
puppy.
and he's a puppy. And if I left him outside the door, he'd bark and then he'd be loud. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, I said a second ago, I said, "Oh, he wants to go outside." And my dog looked up and he was like, "Oh, what'd you say? We're going where?"
yeah, we could do that. But yeah, the IPA world and especially the distro world is a different animal now than it used to be as well. So it's a fun beer to design. I do think we'll make some nice adjustments to it. And actually, what I was going to say is that Idaho, this is only launched in Idaho right now.
Okay.
And we'll find like SoCal and Arizona and Nevada and Washington and Oregon in February of next year. And
Okay.
so that's kind of where we're at. Like I said, when they wanted to launch it, we talked, Sam, stop. And we talked about it. The big thing was that it was just like you wanted a chance to kind of tune the recipe a little bit. And then we also wanted the ability to get into our new hop contracts and stuff like that. So this gave us the opportunity to do both. So I am really excited to see where it goes. And I hate to admit this as a brewery. We're obviously all about consistency and putting out a consistent product all the time. We are constantly making small adjustments to stay consistent, but also improve our products as we learn, because we learn new things about, fermentation, like I said, fermentation, oxidation rates, pitch rates, everything you can think of, we're constantly fiddling with to make sure that our beer is consistent, but also getting better every day. And so we'll continue to do that with this recipe. And I guess that's why I kind of laugh when they're like, oh, well, like what pilot version is this? And I'm like, I mean, I could just call them all Ascent, which would be boring for my tasting room.
Yeah.
But also like, it's just going to keep morphing and growing and changing and becoming a new thing as we kind of go along. So for our first like big batch on our big 40 barrel system of this beer, I was happy with where it came out. There's small adjustments that we still have coming, but again, that's like, I mean, get a chef on the, making a meal and they'll be like, this was good, but I'm going to do this next time. And so that's kind of where we live with it. And we're just growing. And I mean, even to the point where like, and that's the beer I have right now. If you look at the labels, like we decided to go with white cans, which are hard to see on my camera, but white cans. And then we wanted like white labels on it, and they're supposed to kind of morph together. But the white can is actually more like the gray color that's on there.
Oh, okay.
And so like, there's a bunch of iterations of even the labels that are coming out. So like we've looked at clear labels that kind of show the can a little bit in the background. We've looked at all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, again, this is like why you kind of like roll into some of these releases, because you're like, you immediately release something and go like, oh yeah. Like we didn't, we decided to do this thing because we thought it'd be cool, but we had to learn a couple of things along the way. So we've been doing that all the way through it, which it's been a good experience. But I mean, like I said, I'd love to say that, no brewery some brewery comes through, designs it down to the perfect tea and then blows it up and sells it across the country. But it's really not like that. It's just, you kind of grow and morph and learn and dial recipes in, which is what makes it fun to do every day.
Yeah. Well, what I appreciate about the 3 beers that we drank tonight, each one was a completely different beer, and each one had strong points in the beer that their style they're trying to to portray, and I enjoyed all 3, and I look forward to seeing, like I said, Ascent will be closely what we have here, but it's going to change and get even better, but if it stayed like it is right now, I'm okay with it, because I appreciate different IPAs, not just all the same. I don't need to go back to the old school West Coast. I've lived through that.
Yeah,
we already have examples of that. Let me get something new, and I appreciate that. So, but Kris, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on again, providing the beers. I know your time is valuable, and I really appreciate you, offering your time to us and our listeners. But before we let you go, because I've kept you way too long, we'd like to give you an opportunity to raise your glass to anyone out there you'd like to raise a glass to that supports you and the brewery, or whatever you want. I'm sure maybe your wife,
Sam,
Sam, for putting
Sam,
up with
please
this.
don't drink all my beer.
He did good. He waited. I mean, he waited a long time before he got ready for you to take them out.
The funniest thing about Sam is that he will literally, like, he has like a buzzer that goes off in his brain. I don't know if he can hear somebody being like, it's the end of the day or whatever, but at work, like at exactly 8 hours, because he comes with me to work every day, he's like, we
Oh,
have to go home now.
yeah.
And I'm like, okay. But no, I mean, as far as cheers go, like, I appreciate what you guys are doing with this and giving people like myself a platform to talk to
hmm
the consumers and the people that are out there and that are interested in this out. Like, the reality is
hmm
we're all still here and we
mm
still love this, and like
Yeah.
craft beer is not going anywhere, and there are a lot of us that got into this
hmm
because it's what we want to do forever. And
Yeah.
so, it's, if you can go out and drink something, or you can go out and be a part of something, like, you should always choose to try to be a part of something that somebody is literally honing their craft to make.
Mm.
No, I don't want to like throw anything under the bus, but like in a seltzer, there's not a lot that goes into that.
hmm
And so it's like one of those things, like, once you get out there and you can actually go and enjoy something cool that somebody spent time and is like dedicated their life to or whatever, to learning
Yeah.
that craft, like, appreciate that. And it comes to
hmm
food,
hmm
art, like anything. As you walk through town, you go to the farmer's market downtown, you get a
Yeah.
ton of examples of it.
Yeah.
And I think that that is the most important thing as we kind of move forward and go through like all of the different changes in the world and the shifts in craft. That's going to be the thing that's going to stand out at the end of the day, is that we do it because we love it, and we do it because we can share it with people like you guys and talk about it. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's the best thing about these interviews, is I can sit down here and like, we can talk for 6 hours about beer.
Yep.
Easily.
And
Easily.
I appreciate that. Like, if my old life, if I sat down and you guys wanted to talk about compound libraries that I was making in the lab, it'd be about a 5-second conversation.
Yeah, it's no fun. No.
Yeah, so
Just make it taste like bubble gum, if you would, please.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate the time, and I appreciate the platform to be able to talk on it, and let me talk and tell our story. It's fun, and I've loved every moment of my time in this industry, and this is why. So I appreciate
Yeah.
you guys, and
Yeah.
cheers to the people who are still out drinking craft beer and looking for the next beer that makes them go like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Cheers to all of them for
Yeah.
sure. Cheers.
Most
Cheers,
definitely.
guys.
All right, Kris. Well, thank you very much. We already said we really appreciate it, and let Dan know that we, that you. Well, we'll let him know. He can listen. That you represented Mother Earth very well, and if our listeners don't know about Mother Earth, they're definitely going to go out and find your guys' beers and try it, because your story was great. The passion you guys put into beer and developing beers is also really, really good. So cheers to Mother Earth Brew Company.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very
All right.
much. Like I said, I really appreciate your time today.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you, Kris.
All right.
All right, guys.
Have a great night.
You too.
Bye. Well, that was. Do you have to go to the bathroom, Kris?
No.
Okay. So, yeah, we're moving right along. I hope you guys. I know this show is going to be a bit long, but I toned it down because, like Kris mentioned when he left, we could have been talking for 6 hours, and if we keep it down to 2.5 hours, I think that's pretty good. When by the show is over, it'll be 3 hours. We'll keep our last little bit of close up here down a little bit, but let's go back a little bit. And Kris and I would like to thank all of our Patreon supporters, because this episode is brought to you in part by our satisfied Patreon supporters like Mike Allen, Bill Schlemmer, Amanda and Kevin Argauer, Mike Blanchard, Tara Carlson, and Jim Kutzel, and Alex Fuchs, and Eric Scotty Ward, who are our virtual producers. Yes, Eric Scotty Ward upped his pledge to a producer level. Thank you,
Thank you very
Eric.
much.
And Tom Byrne, Jeff Seiler, Johan Halberg, Challen Mossa, Mark Church, and Eric Grownley, who want to buy us a virtual beer. If you enjoy the content we provide, we invite you to support the show by toasting your host, or buying us a virtual beer, or even becoming a virtual producer. You can explore the options on our support page by visiting patreon.com/tapthecraft. And we did get some feedback from our last episode from Eric Scotty Ward. He wrote us an email, said, "Great show with Tin Cannon Brewing. Their story is a great one. Just two dudes you want to have a beer with.
Yep.
Thanks again for all you do, and I look forward to future guests and interviews." Well, thank you, Eric Scotty Ward. Kris and I also enjoyed sitting down with John and Aaron. Great guys. I laughed throughout the show because John kept making reference to the fact that UPS. By the way, UPS did delay my shipment. A week later, I got my shipment of beer, and
Yeah.
I've actually been I've had one of them so far. I have two more. I just happened to be pretty busy last week and wasn't able to. Well, actually, I got to the end of last week, and then I went camping. So I will drink the beers they sent, but I did have one of them, and I was going to talk in New and Norworthy. We were probably going to skip New and Norworthy,
Yeah.
but I did have the raspberry
Crash
jam
into me.
beer. Yeah, Crash Into Me, and I gave it a 4.5 cap rating.
That's what I gave it to.
Wow, super solid beer. They really nailed what they wanted with that beer. Really really good. So I just want to mention that I did try one beer so far. I really enjoyed that. But that's not all. Not only did he send us an email feedback, he answered the call to voicemail and left us a voicemail. He left us one. We have two other voicemails. We have three voicemails from three different people this week. So, Kris, are you ready to
Yep.
yeah, let's go ahead and listen to Eric Scotty Ward's voicemail.
It's funny the way you said it in your email. We got 3 voicemails this episode. I go out of town and people leave us voicemails.
Yeah, that's
Here
right.
it goes. So here's
It's
Eric's.
great.
5-3 oddly. Oh, hey, it's Eric Scotty Ward from Brandon, Florida. Just finished up your show and had to listen in 2 parts. It was a little lengthy, but worth the listen for sure.
Wait till you get to this
you guys
one,
were
Eric.
begging for call-in, so hate to see anyone beg. So here you go. Really enjoyed the talk with John and Aaron from Tin Canning Brewing. The guys just have the mantra, it seems, hey, let's make great beer. Let's provide a variety. Let's know that everybody isn't going to be happy. But at the end of the day, we've done our best, and we can be happy with that. And that's a great attitude. They were real honest. I love the 2 parts where the unknown beer, they called it applesauce, just the looks on their faces, trying to figure that whole thing out.
Yeah.
You can't script that stuff. And his glasses broke right there during the interview.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can't script that either, so
Yeah.
good stuff. Denny, hope you got your box of beer from UPS. I can attest that I have not gotten many boxes from UPS, but as you know, the shippers, it's kind of a crapshoot these days. Kris, if you could tell us what that background is, what brewery that is, I'm just interested. It doesn't look familiar to me. And lastly, keep up what you're doing. Appreciate the content and the work you put into the show. And hey, go Bucks! And coming up in a week, go Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Kris, that background was actually the old Tin Cannon.
Yeah,
brewery.
that was the old, because they even saw it when it popped up. They were like, "Oh man, that's a blast from the past." That was the old Tin Cannon Brewery.
That was how it looked
expanded.
That was how it looked when I visited there 8 years back, I think.
Yeah, but UPS got Denny his beer a week later.
Yeah, so here's the thing. It was they said that the package was damaged. Normally when package is damaged, and I was assuming the package was damaged because something sprung a leak, right?
Yeah.
And if it springs a leak, they automatically just dispose of it. They don't even do anything with it. But I'm wondering if this damage wasn't caused by that. It was crushed or something. The box was crushed because they put it in a whole new box. They didn't have the ice pack or the insulation material that Kris had, but they did put all 3 beers. They knew they were beers. The beers were just sitting in cans in paper wrap in a new box.
Yeah.
They cut the label off of the old box and put it on there and then shipped it to me. I was shocked. I didn't think that I was going to ever see those beers, yet all 3 beers showed up unharmed. So I was impressed. But yeah, such a bizarre scenario.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, well, and between that and Denny, like I joked with you earlier today. I mean, we had not only did you have that, you had the beer show up a week later. We joked because we had a hurricane miracle today.
Yeah.
Denny shipped these beers from Mother Earth, shipped him to me, I think on the 7th. October 7th is when he created the label, and on the 8th is when they made it to the post office or whatever it was.
Yep.
After the 8th, there was no update on the tracking or anything. And I was going, man, I'm glad that I have power now.
Yeah.
Let's do the show, but the beers aren't here.
Yeah.
Well, for those of you that don't know, and Denny, you brought this to my attention, today is Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day, whatever you want to call it. So, like, certain offices are closed today. And about noon this afternoon, I hear I hear a door shut outside, like a vehicle door shut outside of my house. And then I hear this.
Knock, knock, knock.
The dogs go ballistic, and I just said it was just this random thing. My brain went, oh, the beer's here, but we had no update. And I walked out the front door, and man, there was a box of beer from Denny with the Mother Earth beer in it for tonight's show, and it was like, oh my gosh, Denny, it's a hurricane miracle.
The hurricane miracle. The beer gods are looking down on us favorably because not only did Kris have power and internet, the beer arrived. And even 2 hours, I even went 2 hours after the beer arrived and looked. It still said it was leaving Boise. It never updated the tracking, so I don't even know what is going on with this.
It's Boise. Stuff. That's what it is. Every time you send me beer, like the tracking never updates. So
it never updates. It gets to you. I'm always worried it's missing because it never updates the tracking stuff.
Yeah, but, I know.
It worked out. It worked out well.
All right.
Well, thank you, Eric, Scotty Ward, for sending some feedback from the email and the voicemail. You double dutied it this week. But you know what? We also had people that answered the call. My buddy, Alex Fuchs, the shy one, he sent us a voicemail too. So, Kris, you ready to cue that one up? Yeah, let's do it.
Hi, Denny, Kris, and Tap the Craft listeners. This is Alex Fuchs, recording from the beautiful Fort George Brewery in Astoria, Oregon. I'm not drunk yet, but after getting the grief from Denny over the last few episodes, I decided to show the better part of me and leave a voicemail. I would like to give a shout out to the great few last episodes with interviews of brewery owners, really showing that what you meet in craft beer is the story behind any brewery and beer and the passion of the owners to deliver it. So keep up the good work and hope to raise a pint with you anywhere in the world soon. Cheers.
Cheers, Alex.
Cheers, Alex. Of course, I will raise a pint with you anywhere in the world. And did he say he was
Fort
at
George?
Fort George, right?
Yeah.
Fort George Brewery,
especially at Fort George.
Yeah, which is fantastic. And thank you, Alex. Now I will not give you a bad time anymore for not leaving a voicemail. So cheers to you, and we appreciate you sending us that voicemail. That's fantastic.
See, some of us just need a little extra encouragement.
Yeah. I just had to call him out several times, just as a joke. But I was just joking, by the way. It wasn't serious. He knows that.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then not only do we have those two, we have one more from the great Alex Gronley.
How's those beers, Denny?
Yeah, I'm feeling these are big beers.
Yeah.
And Eric Gronley, he also send us a voicemail. Now, keep in mind, Alex and Eric, they both sent the voicemail while I was camping, so I didn't see the voicemails till this morning. And I was so happy when I checked the voicemail and I saw we had two additional ones to add to the show. So why don't you go ahead and cue up Eric's voicemail.
Hey, guys. It's Eric Brownlee from Tampa, Minnesota. Hope you're doing well and that your fall is off to a great start. We got some colder temperatures moving in here up in these neck of the woods. I just wanted to call and say that, Kris, I'm really glad that you guys made it through and that you're safe. I was probably just the tip of the iceberg as far as potential damage and things like that, but appreciated your updates and sorry that you guys were going through that. Jeff Seiler, I know you were in the path a couple weeks back, so just everybody affected with these hurricanes. Hope you're safe and doing okay. And as you start to kind of rebuild and regroup and all of that, So again, appreciate all the content and support that you've given all the listeners and education over the years. Happy to be a big fan and will continue to be. So that's it. I just wanted to check in and say hey. And again, Kris, glad you're okay. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
All right. Cheers, Eric. Thank you for
Eric.
the voicemail. And I agree. I have to also say, Kris, I also appreciated the updates that you provided, because I seriously was worried for you. And every time I saw an update with you outside in the wind and rain and storm, and then after the storm, when I saw the one where you made it through at 2 a.m. in the morning, I was like, I was able to rest easy as well. So you have a lot of people that care for you.
It was more like this, guys. It's 2 a.m.
The hairdo was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
but no.
I mean, did Milton? I mean, Milton was the one that came the closest. I know it didn't hit directly over Tampa. It was kind of
it did
a little bit south.
I mean, it was a little bit south, but I mean, it's a couple hundred miles wide.
Yeah, that's true. But this one was the one that, of all the ones you've gone through, this is the one that was like the scariest, right?
Yeah, this is the one that we have seen. I don't remember if I was talking about it in the beginning. Beginning of the show, like that we have seen the most widespread damage. Like anytime I've ever seen a hurricane, it was 2 hours south of us. Hey, people's homes are flooded and trees are just covering everything else. And so if you drive out of my neighborhood and turn right, there's a big retention pond. Actually, it's so big that it's even a check-in spot on Untapped.
Oh,
go figure. It filled up so much with water. The road is covered probably 250, 300 feet of that road you cannot see. And because, as you like to say, Denny, I'm your favorite Florida man. For those of you that don't know, Florida man exists. And he is that guy who, he's the guy that drove the truck through the middle of that, tried to get down the road, and that truck is still there. He's not, but that truck is still there in the middle of that water.
Oh my gosh.
But there's trees down in the water. I mean, there's the trampoline that's in the, on the side of the road that blew over somebody's fence. The shed, Denny, it's those white sheds, those white like aluminum sheds with the brown roofs on them.
Yeah.
And it's literally, it went from one side of somebody's fence, picked up and just flipped over on its roof. And I swear the one wall is still touching the other side of the fence on my way to work. Like, it's just trees down everywhere. This is probably the most destructive storm that I have ever seen since I've been here for almost 10 years. I mean, we've boarded up for other hurricanes and stuff, but like this one was, I told you in text, don't tell anybody, but this one made me nervous. Because 11:30 at night, you're sitting in the house, the windows are all boarded up, and like
you don't know what's going on.
You don't know what's going on, but you also just you hear these gigantic wind gusts, and then all of a sudden you hear this big thud against your house, and your windows on the inside, you can watch them shake. And I'm going, what is going on outside? And then when I took the boards down, like especially on the back side of our house, there were a couple of spots where you could see just the biggest branch that we had come down was no bigger than a beer can, but that's still big. And to see a hit in two spots on one of those boards and go, imagine what would have happened if we hadn't had that board there.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a little crazy. So it blows my mind every time that we do have these storms, whether they are, I mean, this one was, it lined up and it was just like, Tampa, here I come. It was coming. But the other storms that we've seen where we just go, look, we're going to see some wind and some rain and like some tree branches are going to fall and it's going to suck for like an hour. Other than that, no big deal. But the number of people who reach out to us and go, hey, are you guys good? Like what's going on? And not only just family, but like listeners of the show and, friends, family, people in the beer community, just like just having random conversations with people. And like I've had just people that I would never think that would be like, hey, we were thinking about you. Hope you guys are good. Like Jeff Seiler, I know I chatted back and forth with you. Eric, thank you so much for sending in that voicemail. And the number of other people. I mean, I was chatting back and forth with during the show, we had some comments coming back and forth. A friend of mine here locally went and visited Maryland right before that storm came in, and she was telling me about all the breweries that she visited in the same county where I grew up. And one of the breweries she visited, called Firm, Pherm, Firm Brewing, commented back to her and said, did you make it back to Tampa? Because I asked her, I was like, what was your favorite beers that you got, or favorite breweries that you got, or that you visited, that you brought home? And that brewery responded, hey, we were trying to find your Instagram to make sure you got home okay. And I was like,
that's cool.
That's awesome. So
that is cool.
Yeah. So
well, good. Hey, Kris, I gotta go pee again.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Whew, this can be our longest show ever. All right. Well, yeah. Well, I want to sorry, Kris. Well, we want to thank Eric, Alex, and Eric for leaving us a voicemail. If you want to be like these great guys and leave us a voicemail, we'd love to play on the air. You can do that by calling 208-536-3359. Or if you've been drinking like Kris and I and you just can't remember those numbers, 208-53-ODDLY, just like Eric Scotty Ward did. He remembered 53-ODDLY. You can leave your voicemail. We'd love to hear it and get it on the air. So thank you, Eric Scotty Ward, Alex Fuchs, and Eric Gronley. If you're too shy, well, we will accept emails at taptocraft@gmail.com or on Facebook. Reach us at facebook.com/taptocraft. And remember, we do have our very own Tap to Craft podcast website at taptocraft.com. We have a Discord server. Yeah, I'm horrible at Discord. I try to get on there every so often, but we do have other people in the community that are on there all the time. Go to taptocraft.com/Discord to join our own private community server to interact with our listeners. We do have some upcoming guests coming. The next episode will be with Burt's Brewing out of Garden City, Idaho. Really looking forward to them on October 28th. Rob and Sydney, fantastic people. And I look forward to learning about their story. And then we're going to have White Dog Brewing from Boise, Idaho here on November 11th. So we will have a show in between those two. We don't have an interview. And we'll be able to get back and maybe do our favorite breweries. What do you think, Kris?
Uinta. And
there's only a few, right? Uprise.
I mean, you forget about.
Yeah, there's
Upslope.
a few that I might be Upslope. Yeah, there's Upslope. There's a few I might be able to list there. So yeah, we might do that for our between the two.
And we can also do one of those beer tastings that I brought.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because remember I mentioned Kris provides so much great beer, and then all those wonderful Catador
Oh
Club?
yeah, El Catador Club.
El Catador Club beers. Yes, we will do one of those on that in between.
You pick it.
Okay, I'll pick it.
And it'll
I'm
just
looking
be,
forward
I
to
was
that.
to say, it'll just be at random, but like, just you pick it.
All right. So we also, I think we're ready to name our tintackers.com final contest winner. All you had to do was provide us with a new username for Kris on Untapped, and we
Yeah.
had a few entries,
Yeah.
and we picked one. Eric Scotty Ward. We picked McBrew.
We didn't.
No, we picked it, but
Okay.
Untapped said, no. That name already exists. Now, maybe Eric Scotty Ward reserved it for you, Kris. Maybe that's why it existed. But
I kind of like the name I chose.
But Kris did choose a new username. What new username did you choose?
I went with K9 Hops. So
K9 Hops.
So
okay.
it's the letter K, the number 9, and hops. And it was it wasn't just something out of my brain. I'll admit I used AI for this.
Oh.
Listen, and I plugged it all in and I said, hey, here's the criteria that I want. And it said, okay, here's 10 names. I said, no, that's not going to be it. It probably gave me 120 names to go through before I finally went, that one. It's short, it's sweet, it does what I need it to do.
Well, you didn't put the right code in, and it had to include 1345 too, right?
Oh, I'm gonna say to you what I said in the text, you bastard.
All right, so Kris, you have a new username, K9 Hops. So
K9 Hops.
Choose any one of the options, but the one you were closest to choosing was from Eric Scotty Ward. Is that correct?
So MCKBREW was the name I chose, and I put it in to go change my username, and it said, "We're sorry, this username is already in use. Please choose another one." I went, "Oh, well,
okay."
So,
right.
Eric, I'm going to need you to email us your address. Send it to tapthecraft@gmail.com. Yep, that's the only way I'm going to do it, because I tried sending you a message on Facebook. I don't know if you Facebook message. I don't know if it got lost in spam or whatever, but tapthecraft@gmail.com. Send us a quick email with your name and address where we can ship your tintackers.com winnings.
Yeah. Excellent. Congratulations. Look at you. You've been participating like every week since you found us. We really appreciate it. And now you just happen to win the contest. So congratulations. All right. So I think we're ready to end the show, Kris. What do you think? Is there anything else we need? I'm not going to go over new and noteworthies because we're tired. Let's go ahead. I have a little bit of beer left.
Oh, yeah. Here.
Let's go ahead and raise our glass to some people we'd like to raise a glass to. So who would you like to raise a glass to tonight, Kris?
So I want to raise a glass to Chris Baker and the folks over at Mother Earth Brewing. Not only did they send you home with a bunch of beer, Denny.
A butt ton of beer. Way more than I ever expected.
So thank you to those guys for that. But not only, like, when I was visiting Boise, he was super responsive, just us trying to get together to see about getting this beer, and then sitting down with you for, I don't know, what, 2.5 hours the other day.
He and I sat and drank beer and talked when he was supposed to be having a meeting with his logistics manager. And then she joined us, and we just chatted for 2.5 hours drinking beer together. It was wonderful. So I really appreciate that too.
So cheers to you guys. This was an awesome show. We appreciate the time and the beers. Again, thank you so much for sending those out to us. And Denny, who would you like to raise a glass to this evening?
All right. Our Patreon toast goes out to Mr. Mike Allen. Thank you, Mike, for continuing to be a Patreon supporter. Really appreciate it. And last week was Tom Burns' birthday. Happy birthday, Tom.
Happy birthday, Tom.
Hope you had a great one. Eric Gronley, we already mentioned it with the voicemail. He will be heading to Oregon for a boys' trip to visit breweries and to go watch a University of Oregon football game against the Illini.
Go Ducks.
In that weekend of the 26th. We were trying to work out a deal where I could meet him in Bend. But it turned out that they decided to go from Eugene out to the coast and that's just too far of a drive for me to try
A
to
little
meet
bit.
up. So next time, if it happens, we'll meet up. But we were working some plans out there to meet up one more time together
Okay.
and share some beers. And Jim and Tara, who are out there visiting the British Isles, and I saw today they were in Belgium
Yeah.
drinking Belgian beers. Uh, cheers to you guys. You guys are
Yeah.
including us in your Untapped check-ins. I really appreciate that. Love seeing the beers. Love seeing Tara's happy face.
Yep.
She makes me smile every time
And
there's a photo of her.
and Jim's too.
And
Jim's is in a
Jim's
couple
too.
of
Yeah.
them.
I love seeing you guys' photos. So keep it up. Have fun. Be safe out there. And of course, being a former serviceman, I want to raise my glass and thank all those who have served and who are currently serving in the U.S. military services, protecting our freedoms. Thank you for your service, and I hope all those who are deployed are able to return home safely to their families very soon. And Kris, why don't you go ahead and raise a glass to our sponsor?
Would love to raise a glass to the folks over at Tin Tackers, the provider of sweet metal beer signs that will make your walls happy. Tin Tackers has a vast selection of embossed aluminum beer signs, perfect for your garage, home bar, or man cave. They have the biggest selection with the best prices. They also have a mini tacker of the month club. It's a club just for craft beer lovers who collect tin tackers. It's a surprise in your mailbox every month. So go visit their website at tintackers.com. Use the promo code TAPTHECRAFT at checkout to save 10% on your entire order and to let them know we sent you.
All right. You can find the beers mentioned in the show on the show notes, located on a show post at taptocraft.com. And it is last call. It is time to bring this extra long show to a close. We want to thank you for downloading and listening. We ask you to please tell a friend and, of course, subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And as a reminder, we release a new show every 2 weeks. Now go out there and spread the good word of craft beer.
Cheers.
Cheers.